a special meeting of January 14th, 2025. Of course, all of our meetings are special, but this is a real special one. We're here to hear the continued from December 6th, January 10th, and that's December 6th of 2023, January 10th, 2024, February 22nd, March 6th, 2004, March 20th, 2004, April 29th, 2004, May 29th, 2024, excuse me, July 17th, 2024, August 22nd, November 6th, and December 4th. Before we start the hearing, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Lisi Gescheit. I'm the chair of the panel, and I don't have any extra voting status, but I try to run the meeting so everybody gets to say what they want to say in an orderly manner, and preserve order and make sure the record is clear. Because at some point, some judge may have to listen to all of this and decide if we made a mistake or we didn't make a mistake. I'd like to start at my far left and ask the members of the board to introduce themselves.
My name is Ed Schober, and I'm the first alternate.
George Alzebek, voting member.
Michael Marcello is our legal counsel, and he's to my left.
Dave Collins.
Jennifer Hilton Kavanaugh.
Jay Jackson.
Marlon Oliva.
Tara Ferrer is our minute taker. And our stenographer tonight is Susan Blank. Thank you. Before we get going, I just want to make some preliminary remarks. Tonight I should say, we're going to hear from the public regarding the Colbea application for special use permits. As many of you know, this hearing has been going on since last December 6, 2023. From the beginning of the hearing, many of you have been regular attendees. Some of you may be new to the proceeding, so I just wanted to go over some of the ground rules. Since the beginning of this hearing, we've heard from many people, residents of Tiverton, abutters, concerned citizens, and we've been very liberal in terms of what we allow. Everyone is allowed to ask questions of the witnesses, and many of you have expressed your opinions on this application and this project. Some of you are represented by counsel, some of you are not. At this point, we, the members of the zoning board, are here to listen to what you have to say. This is not an opportunity to ask us questions or to ask any witnesses or attorneys any questions. We're not here tonight to answer questions. We're here to listen to you. Before we start taking testimony, I want to set some ground rules for these proceedings. Because of the number of people that are here, and that obviously reflects the community concern, I am asking you to keep your comments short. If you've addressed the board before and expressed your opinion and reasons for your opinion, that testimony is already in the record. It is already part of what a reviewing judge might hear. So please don't get up to the microphone and repeat what we've heard before. It's been going on for a long time, and we'd really like to get to the point where we get our final briefs, and we have our discussions and our deliberations, which are public. Again, because of the time constraints, I ask you to be brief. If you wish to speak, do not repeat anything you've testified to before. And I don't want to set limits on anyone's comments or testimony, but if this gets really repetitive, I might be forced to do that. Conduct yourselves in a manner that reflects the seriousness of these proceedings and of this case. I appreciate your refraining from clapping, yelling, or any kind of boisterous behavior, because I know that rallies the common spirit. It's time consuming, and I'm really trying to get this matter to a conclusion. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to explain what the mechanics are in this process. This project is conditionally granted, subject to the petitioners establishing a number of elements that are statutorily required for each special use permit that is being requested in this proceeding. These elements have been defined by our courts over the years and may be different than what the common perspective or common belief of what the plain words of our ordinance states. The petitioner has requested 3 special use permits. One of the special use permits is for a gas station. One is for a restaurant with a drive-through window. And the last request is for different signages that vary from our ordinance. The whole purpose of this hearing is for us to examine the evidence, even if there's contradictory evidence in the record, and determine the facts. We are required to make determinations of credibility of witnesses, which is a reflection of a lot of factors such as experience in the field, the manner in which the subject matter of his testimony or her testimony, and we have to decide what weight to give to each witness and to each report. We are required to find facts and then draw legal conclusions based on the facts as we find them to be. For every special use permit that has been requested, we must consider, number 1, is the public convenience and welfare being served? Number 2, will the proposed uses be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of the community? Number 3, the proposed uses, will they be compatible with the neighboring uses and not affect the general character of the area? Number 4, will the proposed uses create a nuisance in the neighborhood or hinder or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement? 5, has the proposed uses is there adequate provision for water service, sanitary sewage disposal, and fire protection? And this board may accept reports of the State Department of Health, registered professional engineers, land surveyors, or any sanitariums. I think that means people that are in the sanitation business, as proof of the adequacy of those facilities. And lastly, are the proposed uses compatible with the comprehensive community plan of Tiverton? Additionally, as it relates to the signage, there are 3 more elements that must be proved by the petitioner or the applicant in order for a special use permit to be granted. The first one is that the establishment of the sign in a completely conforming manner will result in significant damage to the associated business. Basically, is it insufficient to notify the public of what's going on there? 2, that the establishment of the signage, which is non-conforming, will result in a clear visual improvement to the site by virtue of replacement of an existing non-conforming sign. And in this case, since it is a vacant lot, there is no previous sign located on the site. So that is a criterion that doesn't have to be addressed. And lastly, that the location of the sign on a site in a non-conforming manner is necessary to achieve its intended visual effect. These are the standards to be applied to the facts as we find them to be. Again, I would ask the audience to keep these standards in mind when tailoring your comments to the board tonight. And that I would ask counsel to address these factors and cite evidence in the record that supports your position. Not tonight, but in your legal filings. Before we open up the hearing to the public, I want to put on the record that there have been 3 legal matters that need to be resolved before we go forward. Council has objected and moved to strike certain testimony that's in the record. I can tell you at this point, it's my inclination, subject to the opinion of the other board members, to have the record stand as it is and have the board decide the weight to be given to this evidence or its rejection of the evidence. The first matter is the degree to which the Zoning Board of Review should use the impact on surrounding property values. In this regard, I'm asking you to address the legal basis for the admission and persuasiveness of this testimony that is in the record. And that is a comment to council. 2, there has been reference to the value method submitted by a record of a China report and the applicant's corresponding motion to strike. I am not certain at this point if the report itself was introduced as evidence. There may simply be reference to it in the record. My personal opinion is that this is not relevant and deprives the non-moving party of his right to cross-examination, and that there was no evidence that the methodology that was employed in that study complies with the Daubert standard, which is a standard that our court uses for the admissibility of scientific evidence. I would be willing to let the record stand, and again, the board can decide whether to accept or reject the testimony or the report if it has been introduced into evidence. And the board can indicate in its final opinion whether it accepts or rejects the evidence so that everyone's rights to appellate review are protected. And lastly, whether Mr. Hoole's testimony as to the historic impact is competent evidence. Again, we've heard testimony from this witness, we've heard him speak, we've heard his qualifications, and I think it's best if the board considers what he had to say and then either accept it or reject it based on his lack of experience or whatever. First of all, does any member of the board have any quarrel with those principles? Okay. Council, do you want to address the 3 issues or object to anything that I've said about the standards or the evaluation of evidence? Anybody?
Karen Benson on behalf of Preserve Tiverton. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I would just say for the record that yes, the Hendricks report is part of the master exhibit list. It's right now designated number 13. The entire report came in with Mr. Hendricks' CV as well as a slideshow that he had prepared in the event that he was going to be given an opportunity to present it. I'm not going to object per se, but I would like to suggest that there are elements of that report that would be helpful to the board. And I would cite, I think it begins at page 7 or 8, where it's just data aggregation. All it's saying is, within 200 feet of the proposed development, there are this many houses, or there is this much land that is undeveloped lots. It's basically a list.
You don't need to argue it tonight. I mean, I'd like you in your paperwork,
We will.
to address why it's relevant, why it's persuasive, and why we should pay any attention to it, even with considering all of the things that we didn't hear about it. So you're free to do that. I want to make sure your record is preserved, whatever the board rules, and it's documented and clear.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. DeVideo?
Yes, counsel for Tracy Hayward. I'm just a little concerned, at least insofar as you've made a predetermination in your statement that it's doesn't meet the standards.
That's my opinion.
No, I understand that. And just for the record, that making that statement, which I feel could be persuasive to your fellow board members, being the chair and the.
Trust me, we all draw our own conclusions and opinions.
I understand that, but the imperator of the chair, who's an attorney, has some sway to other members of the board, just for the record. And secondly, part of the reasons why that this lapse or absence of the information that you wanted to seek was that we weren't able to present Mr. Hendricks to testify about his methodology. It was continuously either objected to or disallowed by the board. So we're at somewhat of a disadvantage. Of course, if Mr. Hendricks is here tonight, he can speak to it as a...
We're not doing anything but having a public hearing tonight.
Understood. And Mr. Hendricks, as a member of the public, can provide his comments vis-a-vis this project and his knowledge and his opinions. I presume that anyone should be able to do that. And of course, for sure, we'll try to provide as much persuasive argument in our briefs as to why this report does present legally competent, relevant evidence for the record. Thank you.
Mr. Stolzman?
We have no comment. We'll comment in our briefs on that. Just as a very Rob Stolzman for the applicant. We'll just remind you that nothing against Mr. Hendricks. The statute requires testimony as to valuation be provided by a
We're not
registered
going to
appraiser.
get into the merits.
So
You guys do whatever.
That's why.
You know, do it in writing, and we'll take it from there. Shall we begin? I don't know if everyone here wants to speak tonight, but why don't we get started with the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I took the liberty because I arrived early of putting a sign-up sheet. And I spoke to my brother about it, and we'd like it submitted at the end of the night. We'll speak, I don't know.
Okay.
But, so.
That's fine.
Hand it up.
Mr. Burns, Scott Burns? Did you leave already? Come on up. Come on up.
Thank you.
Yes, I see some, before you start, Mr. Burns. Someone waving?
Yes,
And what would you like? You want to be on the list?
I would like to be on the list. I'm sorry that I was a little bit late.
Okay, what's your name?
Deborah, D-E-B-O-R-A-H, G, G-E-E.
I'm sorry, your last name?
G like in G Liz. G is in gold,
I got it.
E is in elephant, E is in elephant.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to be on the list too?
Yes.
And could you just identify yourself?
Andrea Diaz, D-I-A-Z.
Andrea?
Diaz, D-I-A-Z. Thank you very much.
Anyone else that arrived late? Why don't you,
Thomas Snell, S-N-E-L-L.
Philip Carty, C-A-R-T-Y.
Carney? Got it.
Can I make one comment before we go? I feel like I see a lot of people here, but some people are just gonna arrive after this starts. They're not gonna be able to add their name to the list. I appreciate if they have the opportunity to come up, even if we've gone through the list.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns. Oh, I'm gonna need to swear you in.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Burns, we have to swear you in first, okay?
Oh, sure.
You gotta take the oath.
I do. You did a great job in introducing the program, and it made me rethink an awful lot of what I wrote. So
Flattery will get you everywhere.
thank God. But what I'll do is I'm going to substantially reduce what I've written because I went on too long in too many ways, as people do. I am a lawyer. I also, at various times, was a banker and a real estate developer. mainly working on projects in the West Coast. My wife and I have lived in Tiverton for 47 years. Cindy bought and restored all of the historic properties at Tiverton Four Corners, and over time really created with friends and partners, Roz and Jim Weir, what I think is a great addition to the town. We love Tiverton. We are really have tried to do things that we think have been helpful to the town and the community. And I really was stunned to think of the negative impact that I perceive and some of the serious problems that I believe the Seasons Project will create for the community. And that's why I am standing here. You were very helpful in laying out all the standards that you have to look to be able to grant the special exceptions. And I'm not going to repeat any reference to that. There's a significant emphasis on impact on neighborhoods. And this is an exceptionally nice neighborhood that has a lot of historic character. All the houses on both sides of Main Road approaching the site are attractive. They're well maintained. They're occupied by Tiverton families who in some instances have been there for decades. The house opposite the site is occupied, I've been advised, is occupied by a family with young children. The glare of lights and signs, the drone of sound systems, I go to a Seasons station in Providence very often. I'm actually a good customer of Seasons in that location. But I go out of my mind when a speaker starts blaring at me while I'm trying to fill the tank, you know, extolling the virtues of Seasons corporate culture and various other things. And if they ever had something like that, you know, in this station, and they have it in most of their stations, I think it would be incredibly disruptive and painful for the people who live near them. The house directly opposite side is occupied by a family with young children. The glare of lights, the sound, the drone of the sound systems, the slamming of car doors, the constant reigniting of engines, the impact and noise from trucks, the delivery of gasoline and supplies for the business and the restaurant will be painfully disruptive for neighbors and totally incompatible in every way with neighboring uses. I drive past the site at least once almost every day. In recent years, the traffic on Main Road has become much, much, much heavier than it ever was. You know, I now find that if I pull into a parking lot and I go to many different services, Humphreys and CVS and, you know, banks and all kinds of spots regularly, the post office, and it now can take easily 5 minutes just to get in and out of the parking lot. You know, there's just a great deal of traffic where there never was. If the gas station is constructed, vehicles will be coming to and from the station and the convenience store or restaurant from 3 different directions. I'm certain that there will be more congestion than there is now. The site is directly opposite the principal exit from the villages. Hundreds of cars every day are going to the boathouse or in and out of the villages. Some, the residents, others, service groups that come in cars and trucks. The villages, just as an aside, are the largest source of real estate income to the town of Tiverton. The largest source of, you know, tax income to the town. To create any problems on their access to and from their homes, I think would be extremely unfortunate. The gas, it's impossible for me to see how any public convenience will benefit would in any way offset the strains and the nuisance that will be created by the construction of the Seasons facility. I believe that the noise, the traffic, the emissions from the vehicles on the site, the risk of petrol spills will be detrimental to public health. The site is not zoned for this project. I believe the zoning board would be reckless and insensitive to our residents and to our town to issue special use permits for this project. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Ann Lawton.
A second. I have some
We
handouts.
have to swear you in first.
My name is Ann Lawton. ANNELAWTON. I do.
Do you have copies for the, each council as well? Each council. Can you give them to them first and then you can give it to us? Please.
I also have copies so that people in the audience can follow along. What I said?
Could you leave a copy with the stenographer as well?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ann Lawton. I'm a resident of North Tiverton. I'm also a retired law professor, so another lawyer. What I've done here is done a handout so that some of the things that I'm saying you can read along, and you don't have to listen to me drone on and on. You can actually look at the language yourself. I'm here to talk to you tonight about Mr. Pimentel's testimony, which has created a lot of confusion as to what the special use permit ordinance actually says. So rather than talking about the actual language and the requirements of the ordinance, Mr. Pimentel's testimony is littered with phrases like conditionally permitted, deemed permitted, inherently allowed, none of which appear in the ordinance. So his testimony appears designed to convince you that the uses, the gas pumps, etc., are already allowed, but he's wrong on that account. So let me go through and talk first a little bit about the law here. Let's start with this phrase, conditionally permitted. I used to tell my students when I taught, don't use words that are unhelpful and unclear that obscure the issue. So why use the phrase conditionally permitted? It's not in the ordinance. It just means a special use permit. I think the idea is to plant in everyone's head the idea, it says permitted, and it's to plant the idea that it's permitted, maybe subject to some conditions. And if you look at page 2 of the report that Mr. Pimentel submitted, that's pretty much what he's saying. He says legally meaning, when he defines it, it has already been deemed permitted, subject to reasonable conditions of approval if necessary. All right, so we'll come back to the reasonable conditions in a second, but the definition he gives is wrong. Take a look at, you've got a block quote there from a Rhode Island Supreme Court case, okay? And I'm just gonna read the last sentence of that quote, because that's the principle of law. It is settled that the standards set out in an ordinance prescribing conditions to be met with respect to the grant of an exception, and this is, the exception means special exception, which is the old name for special use, right? Are conditions precedent to an exercise of the discretion of the board, which must be satisfied prior to any affirmative action. So what does that really mean, right? It basically means that the conditions in this word conditionally permitted mean the ordinance's requirements. Okay? And before the board can take any affirmative action granting a special use permit, those conditions have to be met. But notice that Mr. Pimentel says the board may impose reasonable conditions if necessary. Okay? He's not talking about the ordinance's requirements here. Why? Because you as the members of the board cannot say, well, this criteria of the ordinance is reasonable and this one's unreasonable, and so we are not going to apply the unreasonable one. You're required to apply the ordinance as it's written, right? And in terms of if necessary, those ordinance requirements aren't optional. You don't get to decide that we're going to apply this one and not this one because this one's necessary, this one's not. So what Mr. Pimentel's telling you here is that these uses are already deemed, permitted, or allowed without saying that the board must decide that the uses satisfy the ordinance's requirements or conditions. He's not using the word conditions to mean the ordinance's requirements. And that's a problem with his testimony. So the other thing I've got here on this handout, you've got the ordinance itself. You've already provided, right, the various elements of the ordinance. But I want to look at the ordinance itself, because I think there's a problem here as well with his testimony. Notice that on the handout I gave you, I've italicized some words. And that's to talk about the timing issue in the ordinance. The ordinance says that the uses, gas pumps, etc., aren't permitted or allowed until you, the board, decide they're permitted, right? After, it says following a public hearing. In other words, right now, nothing's permitted. And in fact, you can deny those special use applications, and then the uses are not permitted. So this idea that things are deemed permitted, inherently allowed, that's just confusing, because nothing's permitted at this point until you make a decision based on evaluation of those 6 criterion. I also bolded some language, which you will see here as well. And the reason I did that is because Mr. Pimentel confused use and design. So he testified that the uses are permitted if they're compatible with the comprehensive plan. That's criterion 6, right? And then he said the board's role, he said something strange. Because of that, the board's role is limited to design. And what you have in front of you on this handout is an excerpt. It's an exchange between Mr. DeVideo and Mr. Pimentel. So Mr. DeVideo says, well, if it's inherently allowed, why are we here tonight? And Mr. Pimentel says, because of the design of it. It's the design, right? Absolutely. Okay, so as we're looking at the design, we need to evaluate this design based on the 6 standards or criteria. And Mr. Pimentel says, correct. Now, Mr. Alzibak, I notice you're grinning here, because you recognize this point as well at that January hearing. And you said, after Mr. Pimentel discussed criterion 6, you recognized there was something wrong, right? And so you asked him, well, thanks for the lesson, by the way. According to you, we shouldn't be here tonight. And he gave you a fairly long answer, but ultimately, at the end of his answer, he said, but from the bigger picture, it's inherently consistent and appropriate. I'm not speaking to the specific, unique design. That's your role. In other words, design again. But look at the ordinance. It's called a specific use permit, not a specific design permit. Do you see the word design anywhere in that ordinance? You see the word use, use, use. So when the words of a statute are clear and unambiguous, then you enforce the statute as it's written, right? You know that, you are lawyers. The rules applicable to statutory construction also apply to construction of an ordinance. The ordinance language here is very clear. You, the board, have to decide whether the uses, not the design, satisfy those 6 criteria. So notice what Mr. Pimentel has done here. He's rewritten the ordinance that once criterion 6 is satisfied, then your job is limited to design. But if the drafters of the ordinance wanted that, they could have written something like, if the use is compatible with the comprehensive plan, then the board shall determine whether the project's design satisfies the following requirements. Notice, it doesn't say that. And the problem with all of this is this, I'm just going to wrap up. His testimony creates a presumption that the uses are permitted or allowed already. And thus he flips the burden of proof. But we know the burden of proof is on the applicant. It's the applicant's job to show, for example, that the gas pumps are compatible with the neighboring uses. The gas pumps won't endanger vehicular movement or pedestrian movement. It's not the objector's job to say, listen, that's incompatible, or it will endanger. Right, so I'm just going to leave you with that language at the bottom from the Rhode Island Supreme Court's decision in Restivo, where the court says, expert testimony is not talismanic, it's not magical. You, as the trier of fact, can accept it or reject it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I just didn't hear you.
Your written
Oh,
submission
thank you.
is being made part of the record.
Record as public one.
P1, can we mark that P1?
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Tracy Haywood? Ms. Haywood, you are named party in this action?
Yes.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. My name is Tracy Haywood, and I reside at 21 Sousa Road here in Tiverton. The Seasons Corner Market proposed building site is directly across from my driveway, which is approximately 50 feet away. I have several concerns with the Seasons Corner Market proposed location. I sincerely believe that the location of Seasons Corner Market or any convenience store gas station at the corner of Main and Sousa Roads will most definitely be detrimental to public safety, health, and welfare. In my opinion, safety will be a potentially major issue. According to our traffic expert, Gordon Meth, it is his opinion that traffic is near or at an unacceptable level. Traffic has increased immensely on Sousa Road over the past years, especially within the last 2 to 3 years. Am I talking too fast? Okay. Most days, cars are always speeding down the road, waiting till the last moment to brake for the stop sign. It is also very tough to make a left turn off of Sousa onto Main Road. Again, referring to Gordon Meth's words, he disagreed with the applicant expert, saying the use will exacerbate existing or traffic conditions. And this seems true because if we're speeding down the road now, I can only imagine it being even more so. People waiting till the last minute to brake for the stop sign, people waiting the last minute to brake if someone decides to turn into Corner Market, Seasons Corner Market, whether they're using a turn signal or not. The further increase in the traffic that will result if Seasons is allowed to locate at Main and Sousa Road will most likely lead to drivers being more impatient, especially those looking to make a quick trip to the gas station or a quick trip to get a cup of coffee. Impatient drivers tend to honk their horns more and yell out their windows and potentially drive more erratically. It is my belief more drivers will be slamming on their brakes and screeching to a halt to avoid rear-ending those in front of them deciding last minute to turn into Seasons. I truly believe road rage and gridlock will increase, leading to an increase in accidents on both Main Road and Sousa Road. And this goes also to comments that were made to the applicant from the DOT that higher rate of accidents will happen with the permitted uses that this is about. I'd also like to address how public health will not be served by Seasons Corner Market located at Main and Sousa Roads. Cars idling while someone runs in to buy a scratch ticket or a cup of coffee will result in noise pollution, air pollution, fumes from pumping gas, which depending on which way the wind is blowing, will blow right directly into my yard. I personally don't want to have to smell or breathe in fumes when I'm simply walking out to go get my mail. The nuisance created by having a Seasons Corner Market in Tiverton far outweighs the potential convenience it offers. Noise and air pollution from idling delivery trucks. And what about light pollution? Having potentially 18 lights, more or less, I'm not sure if that number's been reduced or increased. on all night long is not conducive to getting a good night's sleep. Let's talk trash. How often and what hours will dumpsters be emptied? What about rats and other little critters looking for an easy meal? And what about Sousa Road itself? Sousa Road already has quite a bit of trash dumped on the sides of the road. Primarily nip bottles, beer bottles, and Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups. Oops, competition. I only see this increasing if Seasons Corner Market moves into the corner of Main and Sousa Roads. This also goes to the real estate expert we had, Paul Todak, when he said the use will reduce property values and the well-being, welfare not served by reduced property value. He specifically touched on lights, traffic, litter, will reduce the property value, and that will not be of any service to me. Also, Mr. Friedrich spoke concerning the comprehensive plan and said that not all uses are suitable, such as possibly a gas station convenience store. Maybe something else would be more compatible with the comprehensive plan. I can't see anything truly good for the town coming from a Seasons Corner Market being located at Sousa and Main Roads. The nuisance created by having a Seasons Corner Market in Tiverton far outweighs the potential convenience it offers. In my humble opinion, having a Seasons Corner Market in Tiverton at this location will adversely affect the character of the town. At present, we are still somewhat a peaceful, quaint, quiet little town. With the increase in traffic, pollution, both air, light, and noise, it won't be good. Simply put, it will not be good. Tiverton is still a good place to live. We still have some charm, and let's not throw that away. Thank you.
The board's counsel inquired if Mr. Stolzman has to wished to cross-examine any of the public.
No. I'm sorry. As Ms. Hayward is a party plaintiff to this case, Mr. Stolzman would have the right to cross-examine her as a party plaintiff. This is the first time she's testified before the board. I've asked Mr. Stolzman if he wants to do so. The record should reflect that he waived his right to do so. That's all.
Okay.
Just one clarification. Is there an active case going on right now to make her a plaintiff? Because the only case that existed was already decided by Judge Raspalla. That case is done, so there's no plaintiffs or defendants existing.
She's in a butter.
She's not a plaintiff, though.
I misspoke, but she was in a butter.
Correct, and if she was a plaintiff and was active litigation, I understand why you might offer that to Mr. Stolzman. But because she's a member of the public, and she's objecting, I don't see how she's different than any other member of the public speaking.
In any case, there's not going to be any crossing.
Thank you very much.
Next person on our list is Kathy Batchelor.
I just want to advise everybody, as you get to the podium, please bring the mic right down to the line of your mouth so we could hear you clearly.
Like this? Can you hear me?
Fine.
Yes,
You can
speak
hear
up
me.
and look at us when you talk.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Spell my name? Kathy Batchelor. Batchelor. So raise my hand. Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Kathy Batchelor, and I live on Hayden Avenue, solidly in the north part of Tiverton. I live in that commercial northern part of Tiverton. And I believe that the Seasons gas station representatives have not shown that their proposed location at the intersection of Main Road, Sousa Road, and Schooner Drive meets the criteria needed for approval. It does not meet the required criteria for special use permits, particularly the requirement that it will not be detrimental to public safety and that it will not hinder or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement. I say this for two reasons. One is my reality of life, driving to the end of Hayden Avenue and making a left onto Main Road. This is a four-way intersection with a quick care, you know, like not emergency care, but like an urgent care center across the street at the intersection of Hayden. The main road goes north and south, and there's no traffic, no stop signs on Hayden. So getting out of Hayden is really very dangerous. My sister lived on Hayden for many, many years, and she said, you just have to learn how to do the scoot. You've got to get yourself out of there. And it's a very, very dangerous intersection. I've seen many close calls. Thank God I haven't been involved in any, but I've seen many close calls. So as I proceed down Main Road, I and many people who live in North Tiverton know about the quick left on Sousa to get out to 24, to go up, you know, to 24. We don't go all the way down to the light that's at the head of getting at the entrance to the Saconnet Bridge. It's easier than going that way, than going all the way down to the light. So this is another four-way intersection, similar to the situation on Hayden, where you've got Schooner Drive, Sousa Road, and then the traffic coming both ways on Main Road. And so I can only imagine the dangerous things that are going to happen there if there is this increased attraction of the gas station with the convenience store. If this project does get built, there could be a multi-vehicle crash there, or worse, a pedestrian accident given the crosswalk that's being proposed. I just can't see how this could be any more dangerous than it already is. So I support the contention of concerned citizens here in Tiverton that the traffic studies submitted to you by the applicant are incomplete and fail to show the increased pressure of traffic on Main Road at these four-way intersections all the way down Main Road. I don't feel that they show the dangerous events that could happen there. So please don't let this happen. Please don't let the applicant have these special permits. So finally, I do want to point out that the risk-reward ratio is completely out of line for Tiverton. It's completely uneven, with townspeople like me bearing the increased risk of being involved in something very dangerous like an accident. So I ask again, please don't let that happen. Take into account the safety of the citizens like me in Tiverton. Recently, I was shocked by the destruction of the Lafayette House on Main Road. It seems that this was partly allowed to happen because a box on an administrative form was ticked incorrectly. The result cannot be undone. So let's make sure that all the boxes have been properly ticked in this case and not allow this dangerous nuisance project to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Pat Atkinson Santos. I've asked you folks to keep the applause and not to do it, so please let's not. I know you're all on the same team, so you know you're supporting each other.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing this opportunity for the public to share with you their thoughts and concerns about this upcoming seasons. I have lived, fortunately, in the community of Tiverton for over 25 years. I have observed, just as has been stated several times here, a real increase in the traffic patterns, because I live where Sousa Road, Schooner Drive, and Main Road all come together. I have observed the traffic pattern that is heavier in the early morning as people are getting off to work increase and increase. I have seen the late afternoon do the same. Along with what others have said about trying to get out of their driveways, especially if you're making a left turn, I support that 100%. It is a real challenge to get yourself out on Main Road from my driveway, and that won't end if we put seasons there. The traffic includes delivery trucks, and one of the, especially is the Beatty truck that comes in with their cars. They take up both lanes of Sousa Road in order to make that turn and get up the hill. So they have to be extraordinarily careful, and anyone who is driving through there at that time, they try to be early in the day, but that doesn't always work, is in a dangerous situation, my opinion. Any accident in the area of Sousa, Main, or Schooner Drive stops all traffic on all roads. And depending upon the depth of the incident, that could take up to 45 minutes of no traffic moving in one way or another. In addition to the regular public that uses those roads constantly, I have observed rescue heading down to Brookfield. I have observed the police coming way out of their way to get to a very serious situation. The fire department are all on those roads all the time. School buses also travel on those roads, and the number of school buses has increased, and that goes on from 6:30 in the morning to almost 9 o'clock, and then from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till about 4:30. That's a long stretch of time. The intersection has already been identified as challenging and often dangerous. Seasons will not allow these issues seasons will not alleviate these issues. What they will do is to increase them. I do not want to see that happen in that area. I know when I had to have a group come to my home that were people from not familiar with the area, I spoke with the police captain and said, I need someone there on that place because people who have never been here are coming and going to be turning in and out of these roads. They provided that for me. I was eternally grateful, but I also realized that if anyone had been hurt and if there had been an accident, the liability would not only go to the people involved in the accident, but probably to the community, because I had requested help and didn't get it. But that's not what happened. I was very fortunate. So were all of my guests. I want that for the rest of the people who come through this community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Renee Jones.
I do. Excuse me. Thank you for this public hearing. I drive on Main Road multiple times a day. Each day, I enjoy the beautiful historic buildings and reflect on how Main Road was probably the same road used by 17th and 18th century residents of Tiverton. My husband and I moved to our home on Highland Road over 40 years ago, and since then, we, like you, have volunteered our time on any number of boards and commissions in the town, starting with raising funds and helping build the first playground at Town Farm. We've raised funds for the Tiverton Library, and Greg served on the board for years. And when the Tiverton Yacht Club burned down, we worked over 10 years through court battles to build a new one on Riverside. So why am I speaking about this? It's because they all have something in common. These projects have improved the quality of life, health, safety, and welfare for Tiverton residents. Simply put, the Seasons project does not. More importantly, this project does not meet the criteria to be granted the 3 special use permits it requires to proceed. In particular, it must be consistent with our current comprehensive plan. Starting in 2016, I worked on the committee to write our current comprehensive plan. Members of the community were tasked under the chairmanship of Mr. Steve Hughes to work on specific elements. Because I was on the Economic Development Commission, I worked on the economic development element. We incorporated the state report, Rhode Island Innovates, a competitive strategy for the Ocean State, into our project. The goals stated in the economic development element of our current comp plan on page 132 is to expand Tiverton's economic base to support increased non-resident tax revenue and desirable employment opportunities that pay a living wage, and I'm going to put this in parentheses, while protecting the environment, established neighborhoods, and the small town waterfront character of the community. That's the comp plan. When the Seasons expert, he conveniently left out the last part of that goal because he knows Seasons does not comply with it. What follows in the current comp plan is a policy statement on page 132 that states the town should plan for and support diversified commercial, industrial, and mixed-use developments that will provide net tax benefits and are at a scale and design that is consistent with the character of the town. Again, Seasons does not meet this criteria for being in compliance with our current comp plan. In the land use element, in a policy statement written by Ms. Trish Hilton, the goal is stated, specifically states that we are to promote land use patterns that are consistent with natural resource constraints, are environmentally and economically sound, minimize incompatibility among uses, reduce vulnerability to natural hazards and climate change impacts, and preserve Tiverton's rural, historic, and small town character. Seasons does not meet this goal. Our comprehensive plan states that any developments should be evaluated on their impacts to public water and sewer, traffic, parking, schools, and public safety and surrounding neighborhoods. The town should therefore seek enterprises with the greatest positive tax revenue and job creation that fit within our value parameters of low environmental impact and maintaining Tiverton's coastal and rural character. The plan specifically mentions growth areas such as tourism, technology, health, and medical services. Seasons is none of these. References to the character and quality of life in our small town thread throughout the entire document of our comprehensive plan. This plan was based on input from the citizens of Tiverton and incorporated into the comprehensive plan. Seasons does not meet this criteria. Recently, I have also been working with both the Zoning Committee and the North Tiverton Industrial Park Revitalization Committees. North Tiverton residents have been raising concerns about lack of open space and increased density, as well as walkability and safety. Seasons will bring increased traffic to an already dangerous intersection and have a negative impact on the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. This project will create a nuisance in the neighborhood, hinder and endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement, and have and negatively impact on the surrounding neighborhood. It will unfortunately also set the tone for further development in North Tiverton, something that is in direct conflict with what North Tiverton residents have been asking for. It is not compatible with neighboring uses and will adversely affect the general character of the area. Because it does not meet these criteria for 3 special use permits, I ask this board to protect our town from this regional corporate bully and deny Season's request. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, the next person on our list is Susan Anderson.
I also have some pictures that I'd like to share with the board because it shows the accident. It shows an accident that occurred right on Susan Road just last year. I also have pictures that show what the delivery trucks will look like for the 3 uses that are proposed: the gas station, the food, and the drive-through. This afternoon, I actually took a picture at a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts and almost got taken out by a car that was in such a rush to get into a side entrance to get to the window. So I'd like to share these pictures with the board.
Do you have copies for the council first?
I can give them my copies.
Madam Chair, we waive any objection. They're going to be part of the record, but we'll argue afterward whether they're substantially competent testimony.
Thank you.
Put the mic back in the stage.
Renee, just give those to the court reporter, will become part of the record. Thank you. How many pictures are there? Hold on. Oh, just gotta help. She has to get them first. How many?
You want to?
How many are there, Renee?
Sorry.
Ms. Jones, I'm sorry.
2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 7.
So we'll mark that as P2, 7 photos.
Why don't we label them A, B, C, D, so we can, so the record can differentiate the photographs.
Susan Anderson. I do. Thank you. I live in the second oldest house in the Osborne-Bennett Historic District, within sight of the intersection of Main, Sousa, and Schooner. Over the last 2 centuries, my house has seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood, some good, some bad. Fortunately, the worst one with the tanks in that area before town zoning has now changed for the better, and New England-style residences with lawns, landscaping, and trees have replaced the tanks. I hear the owls at night when I go out to watch for meteor showers or a supermoon. The sky is dark enough so I can look to the north and see stars without any glaring lights or traffic affecting the view. I can count on one hand how many cars pass by after 9 or 10 o'clock, most likely going home after work or meetings. Despite being on a state road, it is quiet at night. I can hear owls through my closed windows. And most of the time during the day, it is also fairly quiet. In the daytime, turkeys and deer cross the road from the Sousa woods to my back 40 to view my vegetable garden in the field behind its perimeter fence. Birds sing to me as I work outside, thanking me for their seed. Kaleidoscopes of butterflies sup from my butterfly bushes and wildflowers, and I can smell the neighbor's dinner being grilled in the summertime. There are no businesses nearby, so I don't hear any backup beeping from delivery vehicles, loud talking, or noise. I hear the sounds of nature and smell my flowers and grilled meals. What I am describing is why people come to Tiverton and want to stay here. This is what the comprehensive community plan repeatedly says throughout that people want here. Quality of life, small town, rural, historic character, local shops, and small businesses. We won't have this anymore if this project is approved.
The existing neighborhood homes with colonial and Victorian architecture in this area date back to the late 18th century, with most dating back to the mid and late 19th century, and a couple to the turn of the 20th. The newest house abutting this corner was built fairly recently. However, its architecture and landscaping fit right in with those that have been here for decades or more. A chrome-trimmed building with large plate glass windows, fake cupola, and modern exterior siding and roof materials is definitely not compatible with the neighborhood. Not to mention its brightly lit 8-pump asphalted landscape in front. To see something like this spring up after driving through a National Register historic district and turn of the last century houses would be disconcerting, to put it mildly. It would greatly change the historic and rural character of this area and does not meet 2 of the special use criteria. And that is just the visual aspect. I need to address another which would affect not only this neighborhood, but all who pass by this intersection, and that is safety. Just this past year, I have witnessed 3 incidents with traffic safety, 2 at this intersection and 1 at the Seasons in Middletown, which made me think of what might happen at this one and shudder. I sing in the Tiverton Senior Chorus and was waiting for the carpool from the senior center to come by my house and pick me up on the way to the island where we were singing. I was standing on the sidewalk in front of my driveway around noon, looking north toward the intersection of Sousa, Main, and Schooner, since the carpool would be coming from that direction. Unfortunately, I wasn't there long when I saw an accident occur at that intersection. A car going north on Main Road was waiting to turn left onto Schooner when it was hit from behind by another car. Both vehicles stayed where they were for a few minutes, but then moved up Main just past Sousa and parked so they wouldn't block the intersection. But cars were still going around them heading north as others were continuing south. I was picked up before any police arrived, so I don't know how it ended up. But it certainly wasn't a weather factor since it was sunny and dry that day. Another traffic issue I encountered was when I was driving north on Main Road and noticed a truck pulled over on the south side, just north of Schooner, working on the utility wires. I had just driven past the truck and was partway up the hill when a fire rescue was speeding south toward that area. I was around the bend and couldn't see what happened when the vehicles following me encountered the rescue and vice versa. The breakdown lanes in that area are too narrow for a utility truck, fire rescue, and pulled over cars to safely encounter each other quickly, since the rescue has priority and cars have to immediately figure out how to maneuver without damage. I'd like to add that there are multiple rescues and other emergency vehicles that daily go by this area and my house on their way to or from Brookdale or the highway or further south on Main Road. The last safety issue I witnessed took place in Middletown at the intersection of Valley Road and East Main Road with the Seasons there. I was stopped at the light heading west on East Main Road, and watched the traffic stopped on the opposite side heading toward me. However, behind the stopped traffic was a school bus that took a detour from East Main through the gas station, past the pumps, and out the other side onto Valley Road heading south toward the schools. Now this happened at an intersection with traffic lights with a 5-lane road and a 4-lane road. Think what might happen at the corner of Sousa and Main when a vehicle on Sousa is stopped at Main and wants to turn left. What will happen if a vehicle behind other cars waiting behind the left turner gets impatient and cuts through the gas station to head north on Main, maneuvering around vehicles waiting at the drive-thru, those at the pumps, delivery trucks, or pedestrians, just so it could beat the traffic and save time to turn right on Main Road? Or, here's another scenario. What will happen if you are in a southbound vehicle on Main Road, waiting behind someone who wants to turn left into Seasons, because the northbound traffic is backed up due to a school bus stopped up the street behind you. And here comes a rescue or fire truck in your rearview mirror. This Tiverton Seasons is situated at the corner of two-lane roads with no passing room. How is this safe for traffic, for pedestrians, or for the neighborhood? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Joanne Ross, please.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak out loud about all this. I'm Dr. Joanna Ross. I'm a psychologist and I've lived in Tiverton since 2013. When my husband and I moved here 11 years ago, we chose Tiverton because of the location, the rural setting, the views, the quietness, and the fact that we could really see stars when the sky was dark at night. We feel that we chose well. But now there's the question of Seasons being built in our neighborhood. This is a business that would include a gas station with 8 pumps, a 4,000 square foot convenience store, and a drive-through restaurant. I'm here to ask you, the zoning board, to vote against the special permits that Seasons needs in order to move forward. It's my opinion that from the first day Seasons puts a shovel in the ground, our neighborhood will be noisier, busier, light polluted, and a dumping ground for more trash and litter. However, beyond all this, I believe the most significant dangerous consequence of permitting Seasons will be its impact on traffic, specifically safety for both vehicles and pedestrians alike. I believe that if Seasons is approved, its presence will create gridlock, left turn nightmares, pedestrian anxiety, driver impatience, even rage, and an intersection that makes accidents virtually inevitable. I say this because the intersection as it now exists is already a difficult one. Accidents occur. This intersection is a point where 2 state roads intersect with each other and a private road. These are all busy streets. There is no traffic light, and not one of these roads has a designated left turn lane. There's no plan to add any because none of these roads is wide enough. So, Seasons is planning to add 3 additional entrances and exits to this 4-way intersection. So that would make 7 points for vehicles to turn or merge into the intersection. In addition, within the adjoining neighborhood block, there are 22 driveways. We're now looking at 29 points of entry and egress without a traffic light and without any designated left turn lanes. I'm not a traffic flow assessor, but I can gather information. Looking at Schooner Road alone, it carries traffic for 217 residential units and a waterfront restaurant. The boathouse is open to the public 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. It's a really busy, popular restaurant. Last Saturday afternoon, I drove down to the boathouse. And at 4:30 on that gray, snowy, dead of winter January day, there were 59 cars in the parking lot. You can begin to imagine the traffic flow on a beautiful summer day. So when exiting Schooner Drive, all cars, both restaurant traffic and residential, have 1 lane at the top of the hill to turn left or right onto Main Road, or to cross both lanes of traffic to access Sousa. That's how it is now, with 4 roads no left turn lane, and no traffic light. So picture, if you will, Seasons fully operational. Their new 3 entrances and exits handling vehicles that need gasoline, pedestrians who need a pack of cigarettes, and cars waiting in line for the drive-thru and a cup of coffee. And remember, these 3 new entrances, exits handling all of this activity are in addition to the 4 others of the intersection. You are on Schooner Road leaving the boathouse. You are finally the first car in line at the top of the hill. It's really busy at the intersection in front of you, and you're aware of at least 4 cars backed up behind you. You can sense those drivers are frustrated and want you to get moving. Driving defensively, you try to keep your eyes on all 6 possibilities for vehicles, and of course any pedestrians or bicyclists as well. When you finally hit the gas, you can only hope your reaction time and reflexes serve you well enough to get you through this and not hurt anybody else. Oh, and at the same moment, there may be 6 other drivers who are making their own decisions about when and how to navigate the intersection without traffic lights or left turn lanes to be of any use. And this is only one scenario from one of these 7 roads. And one final point, even though these are state roads, every time there's an accident or a 911 call, you do realize that the responders will all be ours. They'll be local. They'll be Tiverton Police, Tiverton Fire, and EMT personnel. Those calls will use our town services every time, depleting resources and costing us money. If Seasons is approved, the town of Tiverton and our tax dollars will pay a price for every accident. So I believe that if a Seasons is built at this intersection, traffic will be a constant issue and a constant threat and a constant danger for drivers as well as pedestrians. And I'm asking that you, our zoning board, vote against approving Seasons special permits.
Thank you. You need a break? You want to keep? Anybody need a break? Okay. Next person on the list is Jennifer Fernandez. Jenna Lynn Fernandez. A familiar name.
My name is Jenny Lynn Fernandez. I live at 1049 Main Road, Tiverton, Rhode Island, maybe 50 feet away from this proposed Seasons. I'm gonna skip around, but I did write an extensive letter today, but in order to consume time, I'm gonna skip around a little bit in my letter. So I'll start with, Seasons does not meet the requirements that it will not create a nuisance to the neighborhood, nor will it hinder or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement. A nuisance is an action that interferes with the rights of others, such as by causing noise and odors, which is exactly what this gas station and drive-thru will cause to this neighborhood. I will not be able to enjoy my home and use my property the way I should be able to. I will hear noise and smell toxic fumes every second in my home because of this gas station. My furniture and body will absorb the odor of gas. To help you envision this, think of what your house smells like from reheating fish in a microwave. Now think of my house when I open the doors or windows in my home. My curtains, shades, sheets, furniture, clothes, body, and hair, etc. will smell like gas. I will hear noise all day from drive-through orders and slamming doors from people pumping gas. The entrance and exit of this proposed Seasons is facing residential homes. The lighting from not only this business, but from vehicles entering and leaving this business will be shining and flashing right into the windows of this area's residential homes. One of these homes is mine. At a rate of more than once every 40 seconds, anytime a vehicle is required to use a vehicle's turn signal and headlights, which headlights are required during daylight saving times that would start around 4:30 p.m. my home will become an environment which could cause migraines, nausea, and seizure to some with the rate of flashing lights shining into my home's windows. My privacy, comfort, peace, and ability to relax and sleep will be destroyed, since this light will be directed into my home's living room, and more disturbingly, my bedrooms and bathrooms. On the issue of vehicular or pedestrian movement, the season's experts stated to move around vehicles that you should use the breakdown lane. You cannot. That is illegal. Also, the road is not wide enough. I'm going to skip around for a minute. Hold on. In regards to the criteria of being compatible with a comprehensive plan, being compatible with neighboring uses and not adversely affecting general character of the area, the public convenience and welfare being served, and it won't be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. This nation is in a housing crisis. The large residential build on Sousa Road, called the Bacasset Reserve, could have issues selling homes and home buyers obtaining mortgages. The current neighborhood could also have the same problem. FHA loans are denied for reasons like heavy traffic, home marketability, noxious odor, etc. But these specific reasons are the reasons that a home may not qualify for an FHA loan in this residential neighborhood by granting Seasons 3 special use permits. A business like a vintage teacup store, Quaker quilt store, goat milk product store, hand-blown glass store, novelty t-shirt store, tailor, authentic Irish product store, an activity center that teaches cooking, sewing, and pottery classes for all ages. I could go on, but we won't. Do not bring FHA loan denial reasons to this residential neighborhood. They also do not contaminate the soil or pollute the environment in the manner a gas station does. They add value to a residential neighborhood. Businesses like this also attract tourism and bring new services to our town and neighborhood, which is what the town of Tiverton's comprehensive community plan is about. Seasons does not attract tourism, add or create a new service, or add value to this neighborhood or town. In regards also to the comprehensive plan in Tiverton, it does not meet the requirements. The comprehensive community plan of the town of Tiverton states the most fundamental value is to protect the town's character, scenic beauty, and high quality of life. A gas station that pollutes in an area that is currently used 100% as a residential neighborhood is not protecting the town's character or scenic beauty. A gas station that is a nuisance, pollutes, and brings safety and traffic issues to the area cannot be defined as a high quality of life. It is defined as a complete destruction of a high quality of life. Seasons does not meet the special use requirements for the 3 special use permits it's asking for. The information Seasons has provided to this board, such as its trip generation report, traffic study, etc., has been proven it's inaccurate by other experts. I'm asking this board to do the right thing and deny their requests and be consistent in its rulings. I'm also asking this board to take on the policy that Providence, Rhode Island has taken on and ban new build gas stations in areas that are currently zoned or highly residential. New build gas stations, I believe, in this nation's future, especially in Rhode Island, should be in business environments. We don't need to contaminate any more soil or pollute or destroy homes with gas leaks going forward. And I believe that this town has the ability to adopt the same plan that Providence, Rhode Island has and ban new build gas station. I just want to make it clear that's new build, not existing new build in residential areas. And thank you for your time.
Did you want to submit your letter or?
I did, and I also had a report in here that I was going to submit that came out of Texas, and Texas is our nation's gas producer. They're their top gas producer in our nation, and I'd just like to submit the study that was done in Texas showing that gas stations reduce property value to 30 to 50% in the area when you put them in a residential neighborhood.
Okay. P3 and 4. I'm gonna mention to the crowd that we only go until 10 o'clock unless the zoning board unanimously agrees to continue the hearing. So we're down, not even through half of the first page. I don't say that to stifle comment, but just to be aware of the amount of time, an hour and a half, we've already spent, and there have only been about 7 people who have spoken. So please keep that in mind. Next person on the list, Steve Money. All right. No, I know you've testified before, so please don't repeat what you've said before.
Yes. I'll start with number 2. It will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and morals or welfare. Let's start with a coffee shop. Seasons has been unable to tell us which coffee shop will be going in. This is a big deal because Dunkin' Donuts is a destination and brings heavy traffic. There will be backups onto Main Road and Sousa Road. They also cannot tell us the hours of operation. If you've been to a Seasons, you will know how loud the intercom ordering systems are. Nothing like getting woken up in the morning to someone screaming the order into the intercom. Next, the gas station. The neon lights canopy is at a higher elevation than our house, and we will be looking up at it all night. Is this helping our quality of life? I suggest for everyone that has Netflix to watch season 8, episode 8 of Seinfeld, Kenny Rogers Roasters, where Kramer had to deal with their neon light keeping him up all night. I took a field trip to their Fall River location at 6 a.m., and they had their TVs at the pumps blaring loud. Number 3, this is my real issue. The traffic study that was done is flawed. The study was done twice without accounting for school buses. They didn't even know that our son's bus stop was right in front of their proposed Seasons gas station. I have a friend that works in Portsmouth. He avoids Main Road at 3 o'clock and goes all the way up Fish Road because it's such a mess. There was actually a head-on collision with a school bus in front of our house, which I have video of last year. From the Seasons design, the entrance is at the intersection of Sousa and Main Road for the gasoline tanker trucks to enter. When I was at their Fall River location, I asked the tanker truck driver how he got into the lot. I asked him if he had to take over the second northbound lane to swing into the station. He said, yes, he did. How would that work in Tiverton when there is only one lane? When the tanker exits, will he only be able to exit southbound because of the size of the tanker to make the swing? And if so, their own traffic study shows 80% of the vehicles southbound are speeding. So a tanker truck exiting southbound on a blind curve with 80% of the vehicles speeding is not a good idea. In closing, the town never meant for a gas station to go at this location. If it did, we wouldn't be here right now. It is crazy to believe that they have met their 6 criteria. They are asking permission from this board and telling you that a car exiting every 40 seconds won't create a traffic nightmare. And their lights, TVs at the pump, intercom at the donut shop, and people slamming doors won't affect the quality of life or safety of the people of Tiverton or the abutters. Their experts said that the price of the house is baked into having a gas station across the street. The realtor on the board will probably tell you that a barber shop, insurance company, or even a restaurant will not reduce our property value as much as a gas station would. This gas station, convenience store, coffee shop belongs on a 4-lane road. There is no room for emergency vehicles to get around this busy intersection. This will cause such a traffic problem that the state will need to step in and clean it up at the taxpayer's expense. Seasons is not supposed to create problems, but blend in. I would hope the board would do a field trip before voting on these special use permits. Please go to the boathouse and try to take a left on Schooner Drive. I have a fast vehicle and I have to gun it to get out of there because you can't see where you're going. Take a trip to the Seasons in Fall River and witness all the delivery vehicles parked on the side street. And you're welcome to sit in my driveway at 3 o'clock and watch the traffic for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a recess for 15 minutes. So we will come back here at 5 of 8. Anybody listening to me? Can we settle down and get back into session, please? Do I have to put on the record that Marlon left?
Who?
Marlon.
Who's Marlon?
Her alternate.
It's okay. She wasn't voting anyway.
No,
She couldn't-
no.
You should put it on the record.
Okay.
She wasn't a voting member.
I'd just like to say a couple of things for the record before we get going. Our alternate, second alternate, Marlon Souza, left, but she couldn't vote, so I just wanted the record to reflect that. And the second thing is that in the interest of time, I wanted everyone to be aware that up until this Friday, we'll close it this Friday. If you wish to submit a written testimony in lieu of staying later and testifying tonight, or at some... Did you set the fire alarm off on purpose?
I was trying to sneak out quietly.
Maybe if you closed the door, we wouldn't be bothered. Okay, great, thank you. If anyone wants to submit written comments in lieu of testimony tonight, you can email it to us at buildingclerk@tiverton.ri.gov and just put on the memo line that it's regarding seasons. Or you could drop it off at the zoning office in Town Hall. Oh, Friday they close at 1:30. So if you'd like to do that, that's an alternative to testifying live tonight. Okay. John Reed. Good evening.
Good evening. I do swear to tell the truth. I do, thank you. My name is John Reed. My home is, at 21 Riverside Drive, where 11 years ago I restored an old 1880s beach cottage, which now has a marker for that fact, as do two of my neighbors. I value the history and culture and quality of life in this community. I consider that our home and my family is within the area 1 mile affected by this proposal. I think it is important to view clearly that what we are talking about is not seasons. It is not a seasons market. It is not this little brick building fancily made up to look ever so nice, but we're talking about a Shell oil gas station. 3/4 of this lot is devoted to the gas station. The signage is largely the gas station. The lighting associated with the enterprise is largely the gas station. The money that will flow through it and the profits that will be made from it will come largely from the $20 to $100 transactions at the gas station. What is being proposed is not a convenience store, as it was so nicely described in some of the testimony with an appurtenant 8 gas pumps. But what it is a classic gas station, what gas stations have always been, and the convenience store is just an accessory use to it. Fortunately, long ago, the town of Tiverton made the decision that gas stations were not a, quote, permitted use, not in a commercial district, not in a residential district, not in any zoning district at all in this town is a gas station a permitted use. Instead, it is a use that can be allowed only by a special permit And what is important to recognize about that, and we have heard wonderful testimony today from people, and I am sure we will hear more about the harm that it is perceived will be done to the character of their area and the incompatibility to the existing uses. But the burden is not on the people of this community to convince you that we will be harmed. The burden is on them to convince you that we will not be harmed. To my mind, that makes an enormous difference. They have to convince 4 of you, as I understand it, and that makes just exactly how clear and serious and grave the people of Tiverton over the years have considered a special permit, that it requires a supermajority to allow it. Not just 3 out of 5, but 4 out of 5. And they must convince you that we will not be heard. Everybody in here, they are all here, are you not, to let them know that we are heard, and our character of life is set back by this. I'll await citizens who come forward to speak on behalf of Seasons. There may not be many. We've heard from the personal point of view, that is a hazardous intersection. People coming out of Schooner Drive face traffic from the left and from the right that is curving from behind them, so they don't get a clear and long view of people coming. So you look left and you look right and you look left and you get ready to go and realize you've got to really look right again, but no, left again. And the people coming up Schooner Drive, many of them, like myself, older than 35, it's a challenge. And it's only going to be made more challenging, as people have very clearly said, by the addition of this enterprise. One of the elephants in the room is a traffic light, and nobody has spoken about it, none of the experts so far as I know. And one thing we do know is that traffic lights do not improve the quality of life, do not improve the sense of this rural community, do not improve what we think Tiverton is. But one thing is for sure, if it ever happens, this is an enterprise that will cause it, contribute to it, make it happen. And the people don't want more traffic lights, in my experience, anywhere. And it's one of the blessings that we have so few. You have heard from the other side expert witnesses who have discredited themselves, and you have the basis to disregard what they have said. One of the things about that intersection, as you come from the north, is it's downhill. As we all know who come down that road, and I would 3 or 4 times a week, we gain speed going down that road. The Tiverton police know that. They lurk in and around that location. And that was pointed out to their expert, the backing up of traffic, of people turning left and north-southbound traffic coming down. And their expert said, no problem, you can just go down the breakdown lane around and go back. And another witness previously referred to that. And one of the attorneys, what I would call the good guys, pointed out that that was illegal and cited chapter and verse of the Rhode Island law to show it. But it's illegal, it's not only illegal, it's illegal because it's dangerous. It's dangerous because a car slips by and slips past where people don't see it and it creates accident. How can you make a decision that in any way is based on the expert testimony of a witness who has so displayed his unreliability as to rely on illegal and dangerous maneuvers to make that intersection more passable? You cannot, and you're entitled to disregard that testimony and listen to the other testimony in the case. With regard to another of the experts who referred to the value of the abutting neighbor's residence as having a baked-in reduction of value because they abut a commercial area, and that is already reflected in their value. So no harm because of this, because it's already, quote, baked in. but it is not baked in that a board such as this would grant a rare special permit for a commercial use that is not automatically, quote, permitted, and not only do so in one respect, but do so in three respects: the gas station, the drive-through, and the lighting. So it's not baked in, any of those residences, that one day they would confront a developer who would put a Shell oil gas station in their front yard, their backyard, or their side yard. It is not baked in, and it is surely destructive. And whether you can count it up in dollars and cents doesn't really matter. People are adversely affected when their quality of life are affected. And as the statute says, affects neighboring uses, incompatible with neighboring uses. Who among us thinks it compatible with our home lives to have a Shell oil gas station across the street from them? It is not. Yes, you can still eat, and yes, you can still sleep, but you will not enjoy the domestic tranquility that people expect and aspire to in any community, and feel that they have found it in Tiverton, so long as we can hold on to it. I'm not sure why this process requires so much from expert witnesses. I don't think it requires expert witnesses to tell you how people's life and neighborhood is affected by a development such as this. I think the people who testify here today are the real fact witnesses in this case. They know what affects their neighborhood. They know what's compatible with their neighborhood. They are the character of the neighborhood. They are the character of the community, not the paid-for experts, most of them who are virtually employees of the petitioner here, who do it regularly, not independent experts appointed by a court and brought down from the heavens, but people who are paid for giving this testimony day in and day out. But the people know, and the people are speaking by their presence and by their letters to you, and those are facts that should be taken into account. I think the traffic study is flawed in the respect that it is disingenuous to think that there is not going to be traffic that comes from Route 24 and comes off the big highway and seeks out this gas station. There was a suggestion, as best I can recall, from the season's expert that it was more or less going to be just passed by people. But it is, in fact, this lot is the closest commercial lot to Route 24. I find it no coincidence that it is the lot that has been chosen to have a Shell oil gas station, because it is the closest possible location to the interchange between Main Road and 24, and probably the closest location until you go up to Fall River, except for the other interchange, which is at Fish Road, which is something commercial, HC, heavy-duty commercial. That too requires a special permit there, and virtually all four corners are taken anyway. So I don't think Seasons has chosen this location without a regard for the potential of business, people flowing in off 24 in the later hours. As I said before, it's about a gas station, not about Seasons. You Google gas stations in Fall River, and you'll get a gas station on William Canning, is it? And it'll say Shell gas station. Seasons it is. If you Google a gas station when you're in Bristol around Metacom, you get Shell gas station, Seasons. The truth is, this is about a gas station. And Tiverton doesn't want gas stations anywhere but set by a special permit. So where would you put one? Well, fine that you put one on Main Road. You put one as you go up that quiet area there and past the quiet daycare center and the athletic center and the other small, friendly neighborhood businesses that don't work 24/7 much, and they don't work 18/7. They work about 10 hours a day. They're not open and lit up all night until midnight. As you go past those, then you come to an area where Tom's is and Humphrey's is and the dollar store, where good idea maybe that you can give a special permit. That would make sense. But why would you give a special permit to the last commercial lot on a commercial zone that is only on one side of the street, at the very bottom of a commercial zone that has never been intensively developed by high volume businesses, unlike further up around Tom's, and that is surrounded on virtually all sides by residences? If you would give a special permit to such a location, then you are essentially saying we don't have special permits because you can put a gas station anywhere from one end of this commercial zone to the other end of this commercial zone, and we're not worried about whatever the effects may be, because there is no more compelling case against this gas station than the location that the Seasons folks chose because of its proximity to 24. But the other virtue of that location, is that it's a disaster for the surrounding neighbors, it's a disaster for the neighborhood. So, their burden is to show that it does not adversely affect the general character of the area. Their burden, for four of you to say confidently, I'm sure a Shell oil gas station doesn't adversely affect that area. One thing is for certain, that gas station will affect the area, and it can only affect the area in one of two ways. It can either make it better or it can make it worse. And who among you is prepared to say that you are persuaded that a Shell oil gas station at that corner is going to make things better, not worse? It seems to me, 2 weeks ago, this community lost a valued historical treasure. A physical treasure and a historical treasure. Part of the state's treasure, part of the nation's treasure, part of our history. And it lost it because there were no rules, there were no laws, and the gentleman who owned that, however he chose to fill out a form or not to fill out a form, would ultimately be in his rights to tear down that building, and so he did. Fortunately, in this circumstance, we have very clear laws and very clear rules that tell us what to do when somebody wants to put a gas station at a location at the very edge of a quiet commercial area and in the midst of residences. And it very clearly tells us that we should say no to them. And I think the direction this community takes, does it tear down historic buildings? Does it put gas stations that are intrusions upon a neighborhood, that disrespect its neighbors, that disrespect the historic district that abuts it? Which road do we go down? I think it's fairly clear which road we should. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Alan Converse.
Converse like a shoe, but not. Alan, A-L-L-E-N. I do. I had a lot to say, but Mr. Reed just said a lot of it, and he said it a lot better than I can. So I'm going to ask you all to just remember everything he said, because he did a great job. Yeah, really great job. Traffic is a huge issue, and he's absolutely right that what's missing from all of the discussion is the additional traffic coming down 24, coming up 24. And one of the experts for Colbia, Mr. Pimentel, said that this is a regional business, and it would be dishonest to say otherwise. But yet, that expert's testimony didn't lead to anybody considering the traffic on 24 as complicating what is already bad traffic. Now, Seasons did try and have another expert say, well, no, it's totally a local business. Well, they can say that it's totally a local business all they want to, but if you're running out of gas and you're coming down 24 and you pull up Gas Buddy or Google or Waze and look for the next gas station and there's a 1/2 mile off of 24 on Main Road, you're going to get off and use that gas station. That's not the visitors that Tiverton's looking for. Tiverton's looking for people who are going to come and enjoy Tiverton, not people who are going to come in, buy some gasoline, get a cup of coffee, throw the cup out the window in our front yard. So traffic is a huge problem. I also find it adorable that Colbia seems to think that they can control the traffic flow in their service station with signs. I ran a corner service station for a number of years. It happened to be a Shell station too. We had people who, gee, traffic's backed up at the intersection. I need to get over here. I'm just going to cut through the gas station. And they don't cut through quietly. They're trying to get from point A to point B, and they'll zoom through the gas station. It's dangerous for the people who work in the gas station. It's dangerous for people who are trying to get things done. It's dangerous for the people who are trying to offload gasoline. But they don't do that during the day. Most of the time, I got most of my gas deliveries at night because the fuel truck driver didn't want to have to deal with the people in the lot. I mean, I remember one day there was a fuel truck who was filling my tanks, and he had his cones set out so that people would stay away from the fuel truck. And somebody really needed to get through my gas station to get to the other side. And they cut through and they just ran over one of his cones. Because it's the shortest way. Now, signs won't help, cones won't help. People go where they want to go. People today don't even pay attention to traffic lights. Have you noticed that? They just drive right through red lights. So signs are not going to slow anybody down. People are going to go where they want to go. And when those fuel trucks come in at night, now I pity the people who live across the street from it. Those fuel trucks are not quiet. If you look at the inlet for one of those tanks, there's essentially a manhole cover that sits on top of that. And when the driver gets out of the truck and he pulls that thing off, he just wings it out onto the lot. And it rattles and it makes a heck of a noise. Think of dropping a plate made out of steel that just sort of rattles and carries on. And of course, they've got their floodlights on so they can see where they're working. And they probably leave their truck running. It's noisy. It's a nuisance to the neighborhood. Poor Susan Anderson, she wants to go out and she wants to listen to the owls. She's not going to be able to hear any owls over the rumble of the truck or over the clanging of the tank lids. This is not what we're after. This is not what we want in Tiverton. The burden of proof is on Colbia to show us that this is not going to hurt us in any way. And yet they have experts who can't even agree on what they're offering and what they're doing. So I don't know what they can possibly provide for you that is going to give you concrete evidence that what they're doing is good for us, because I don't think it's there. Thank you.
Yes, it's Babak, B-A-B-A-K, last name K-H-O-S-R-O-P-U-R.
I apologize for destroying your name.
I've lived with this name for 73 years. When there's a hesitation, I know it's me that's being called. So, I do. I live at 15 Lee Shore Lane, which is the village at Mount Hope Bay. And what I'd like to do is read a letter to the zoning board. And this letter is composed and signed by 150 residents, so I'd also like to give it to you so you have that as a matter of record and who the owners are. It says, Dear the zoning board, I know time is valuable, so by my representing 150 people, I've probably saved us 2 or 3 weeks here. The undersigned owners, residents of the village of Mount Hope Bay, are in opposition to the Zoning Board of Review's approval of the proposed Seasons gas station / market project on Main Road at Sousa and to the issuance of the requested 3 special use permits. The village has been part of the Tiverton community for over 20 years. Our association property begins at just 570 feet west of the proposed project. Our homes and their combined property value currently comprise the largest congregation of residential properties in the immediate area of the proposed gas station and market. The planning board made the correct decision in denying the Seasons project. The town's comprehensive plan specifically denies the type of project proposed for this pedestrian-friendly destination zoning district, as is evidenced by Seasons needing to seek 3 special use permits. All 3 of the special use permits that Seasons is seeking are contrary to the town's comprehensive plan for this pedestrian-friendly area and need to be denied. As we know, number 1, gasoline filling station, the restaurant with drive-through, and the signage. The granting of these 3 special use permits would create very specific problems. I have 3 I want to go through. Traffic. The site corner is the busy intersection of Main Road, Sousa Road, and Schooner Drive, leading to our property, as well as the boathouse. Presently, general traffic flows, including that generated by our residents, and the boathouse restaurant on Schooner is significant and causes entrance and exit backups on main roads. Significant aggravation of the existing condition will be caused by the addition of a gas station market. Traffic will also increase with the proposed addition of 275 new residences on Sousa Road and Fisher Road. It is reasonable to predict an increase in motor vehicle accidents. A strong traffic study with consideration of traffic lights at this intersection with respect for the fact that it is a state road should be conducted before any final decisions are made. Number 2, toxic chemicals. Since the village is directly downhill from the proposed gas station and market, we have strong environmental concerns. There's a very certain risk of toxic runoff, and our property from this filling station due to spilled fuel or oil at the pumps. As homeowners, our community has already spent approximately $450,000 upgrading and maintaining our retention ponds to comply with Rhode Island Coastal Resource Management Council standards. We have documented experience working with the CRMC and continue to budget $10,000 to $16,000 per year for quarterly and annual maintenance of the retention ponds required to ensure responsible management of both surface and underwater running through our acreage into the bay. Recognizing that there will be additional levels of pollution caused by main road runoff from a gas station, we strongly recommend that the Zoning Board of Review conduct a comprehensive environmental study before any final decision is made. And lastly, signage and light pollution. The impact of the proposed 24-hour operation is a critical concern for our residents. We will experience a diminished quality of life due to the gas station / market's illumination and the noise generated. Ambient light overflowing the Seasons property and entering our homes will also negatively impact the night sky and have an environmental impact. Articles 15 and 16 of the Tiverton zoning ordinance outline the duties of the Zoning Board of Review. The Zoning Board of Review must determine if all 3 requests for special use permits meet specific criteria for the permits to be granted. The zoning ordinance is very clear about the criteria citizens must meet to be granted the special use permits, including that it, quote, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, morals, or welfare, and that it will not create a nuisance in the neighborhood nor hinder nor endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement, end quote. We do not believe that the criteria to guarantee these detriments can be met. Through this letter, we, the undersigned, have provided the Zoning Board of Review with the genuine concerns of impacted and very adjacent local residents. We urge you to uphold the original denial of the Seasons Plan by the Planning Board, which we believe was made in the best interest of the town and in keeping with the town's comprehensive plan. This is the letter I would like to hand over to you. And if I may, aside from this, just a brief personal comment as an individual. I have lived in the village for about 14 years, and that exit, Schooner, Sousa across the way in Maine, has been, in my personal observation, you know, already quite troublesome. The road curves out of your direct line of sight in both directions, and as people have testified, you really need to creep and then shoot out at your own peril. I have in my career, I have been an insurance claims adjuster, property and casualty, and then later in management and executive. In my real working career as an adjuster, I've investigated thousands of automobile accidents, interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people, photographed, measured, filmed every possible permutation of intersection that you could have in this country. And it is from my professional observation mixed with living there that I am certain there's not going to be, as a result of putting this gas station in there, a gradual increase. There's going to be a spike. There's going to be a spike in accidents due to many of the reasons we've already heard here. People trying to sneak around, impatience, poor visibility, and the general congestion, what that leads to. At 20 to 40 miles an hour, probably the only fatalities will be pedestrians, but the rest of it will be property damage, bodily injury, soft tissue, fractured bone. To me, as an executive, that's a statistical certitude. So I just wanted to add that as my own personal comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Margaret Goddard.
Hello, I planned ahead, came up close. Margaret Goddard, M-A-R-G-A-R-E-T, G-O-T-E-R, just one T. I did. For the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what I was going to say, but I do want to add, I am one of the signatories on that letter for the Village of Mount Hope Bay. I'm currently the president of the association there at Mount Hope Bay. And the first thing I wanted to do is just thank all of you for serving the town, for sitting on these boards, volunteering, because I know it isn't easy. I've attended most of these meetings. They've been brutal, right? So, thank you. And just to add, I too have difficulty pulling out of Schooner Drive already. And I'd like to remind everybody that this is a 55-plus community. I have personally, in the last 2 years, seen some of my neighbors drive up onto rocks in the neighborhood, okay? And we have, for the last 3 years, had a volunteer that stands at our exits during the Tiverton parade, and following that the signs don't really work, it isn't enough to just put up hazard sawhorses or anything like that. We literally put people there to make sure that some of our older residents, and they go up as over 85, 40% are over 75, 75% of us are over 65. So I would just like to remind everybody
that the traffic, their reaction times are slower sometimes, their judgment isn't as good, and they get nervous when they try and pull out of these exits. And the traffic certainly will be worse. So I just ask you really, please do the right thing. The vote is in your hands. You have the expert testimony. You get to decide, you know, which is true. And I'd like you to vote down these variances, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Louise Durfee, please.
A little slower than usual, but that's what happens when you sit too long. I don't, oh, I'm sorry. I do. I will. I will.
We can't cut the oath out, please.
You know, I've sat through, I don't know, I guess maybe 10 hearings. And I've listened to the various testimony tonight. And I also, over the years, have served with 2 of your members many years ago. But I have a question that I have to ask rhetorically. Does anyone really believe that this Colbia proposal is compatible with neighboring uses and does not adversely affect the traffic in that area? You know, 2 days ago, and just bear with me a minute because this is an analogy, but I went to Tom's Market. I needed dog food. We were out. I drove in and went up, and if any of you have been at Tom's Market, you know it's a little bit of a challenge getting in and out. And I was confronted by cars coming around from the drive-through, from the store, and I went to park and I thought to myself, this would be great. This is an analogy to what Colbia is proposing. All we need is for Tiverton Sun to take and expand their pumps and put them right in Tom's parking lot. Because those are the 3 uses that Colbia is proposing, not at Tom's Market, but at Sousa Road. And talk about enhancing trouble. The other day, to get to Tom's, I was actually following a school bus. And the school bus had to pull over. And I thought to myself, the traffic on Main Road, and I'm not in a butter, I live on Highland Road, but the traffic along Main Road has no doubt, over the years that I have traveled, certainly gotten worse. But aside from that, and being at Tom's Market, and I said, who in their right mind would put 3 uses, car-driven on Sousa and Main Road? Certainly it gave us a picture of what Colbia was doing on a really small lot. And it's difficult for any traveler, any person driving a car today, not to know that this is going to cause traffic and vehicular problems right there. You don't have to be a traffic expert to be a driver in this town and pass through that intersection. And thinking about 3 additional uses: gas pumps, a store, and a drive-through. How many times in the late afternoon have you driven up Main Road behind a school bus who had to pull over in order for traffic to pass. And oftentimes that school bus is right on the Cobia property. So I must say, how in the world can you overcome that burden? And I'm speaking now of the applicant. The burden has not been met, and I have listened throughout all the hearings. Even the testimony of Preserve Tiverton, traffic expert, talked about, on a peak period, the number of trips to the facility, which was twice what their traffic expert predicted. Now, I have heard some members of this board say, well, isn't some business going to get there? Oh yeah, probably so. It may not remain open space, but there are so many businesses that do need space that would be amenable and compatible with the neighborhood, with the historic district, and with the traveling people in this town. There's no question about that. You know, as one of the experts had said previously, you don't have to be an expert to decide that this proposal by Cobia would not adversely affect the neighborhood. Go take a look and see what's surrounding there. Oops. It is residential. It's Miss Tracy. It's the Mahoneys, Fernandez, Pat Santos, the people in the villages. You just don't have to be an expert to know that putting 3 very high intensity car uses on that intersection is going to create problems in the neighborhood, adversely affect it. It's not compatible, and it will cause traffic problems. And the last thing I would like to say as a person who doesn't live in the North End, there is great sensitivity in the town about the belief that if you live in the North End, it's okay to develop. But let's keep the South End relatively development free. And I think it was one member of this, one of the people testifying tonight, who said, once you begin to allow a seasons of that type, it allows further growth of that type of development. And the town needs to be very sensitive to that, and so does this board. I know you all work hard, but I would hope that as you sit and think about the decisions that you make as a board and the effect on neighborhoods and where that will be in 5 years or 10 years, you consider that this 3-use development proposed does not fit there, and it should be turned down. With that, I thank you all.
Thank you, Louise. Ron Marsh?
Ron Marsh. Correct. I certainly do. Okay, my name is Ron Marsh. I live on 4 Rod Way. That's near Four Corners. And it's 7 miles from the site we're discussing. So this is not a NIMBY for me. And I wouldn't need gas there because there are already 2 gas stations that are closer to my house. And whatever effect on traffic and quality of life that would happen, it's miles away from me. What brings many of us here tonight is that the proposed Seasons is simply wrong for the location. We think there's strong evidence that it will do harm to the neighborhood and to the town. Think of a pig farm. Think of an auto speedway or a crematorium. Each is a legitimate business when correctly located. Each could create damage in the wrong place. Let's take a little drive. There's a Seasons Market at 130 Canning Boulevard in Fall River, located where a divided 4-lane highway intersects another divided highway and surrounded by other businesses. I think that's a good location. Now over to Bristol at the corner of Metacom and Gooding Avenues. Both 4-lane roads with no residences anywhere. The Season here works fine, harms no one. Let's drive down to Middletown at the corner of 4-lane West Main Road and 4-lane Valley Road, where businesses occupy all 4 corners. There's nothing to complain about here. From here, it's just 2 miles down to the Seasons at 138 Connell Highway, near the Newport Bridge exit ramp. It's in a commercial neighborhood. This is a business in a proper business location. But the proposed Seasons site does not remotely resemble these others. Main Road here is 2 traffic lanes, not 4, and Sousa is a narrow, wooded country trail. And there are no businesses anywhere visible from the proposed corner. These conditions make a clear case that the applicant violates the criterion that their proposal not create a nuisance in the neighborhood, nor hinder or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement. Furthermore, there are homes directly across the street on May Road and on Sousa, homes like yours and mine. Not one of the Seasons we just visited sits near a residential home. At Main and Sousa, the traffic, the noise, the litter, and the bright nighttime lighting, routine at these other Seasons, are now going to happen right across the street from where families live. In view of this, it's hard to imagine that the proposed location is compatible with neighboring uses and will not adversely affect the general character of the area. Now, we have seen meeting after meeting here before this body where speculation was presented from both sides. The applicant brought witnesses that speculated that their project would be beneficial. Opponents provided witnesses that speculated that harm would be done. But we don't really know who's right unless it's built. Then we'd know for sure. But there's already a method in place to find out, without speculating, whether this Seasons is a good or a bad idea. Let's just take one of the requirements for the special use permits, that the proposal will be compatible with neighboring uses and will not affect the general character of the area. On January 10th, 2022, the Warwick, Rhode Island Board of Public Safety held a hearing on an application by Seasons. Now, their store was already open, but they came back to extend to 24 hours. Please note that they had originally guaranteed that they would shut down at night. Here are direct quotes from neighbors who had plenty to say about how their Seasons affected the general character of their area. I don't trust them, given what they've already done. They're not respecting the neighbors, I'm sorry to everybody that I didn't sign the petition in the beginning because I wanted something there, but I think we were fooled. Here's what another neighbor said. There's no need for a 24/7 there. He wants to have an operation open all night. We need to sleep. It's to the point now that I'm ready to sell my house. This man does not care. He's not only ruined our property values, he's ruined our neighborhood. Speculation aside, in my opinion, there's no substitute for the documented experience of citizens who have been through this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Susan Benish?
Thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
Could you speak into the microphone, Ms. Benish?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time and the volunteer hours that everyone on this board has put into this exhausting process. I moved and bought property in North Tiverton because of the ambience, the bucolic, peaceful nature. And this was very important to me. I grew up in a residential part of a small industrial city in another state. The effects of light, air, auditory, or pollution are very important to me. They were evident every place in the community where I grew up. I do not want to see that happen to Tiverton. With the added traffic, a season's conglomerate would happen to Tiverton. I would be hearing motors and breathing polluted air and seeing light pollution. I would be inhaling polluted air instead of fresh air, as well as seeing trash or litter or pollution. We all know that if somebody gets a cup of coffee, they'll pop it out the window, or a cigarette butt or candy, they just toss it out the window. I won't be able to walk safely and enjoy the area. And I have walked down to where the Coachman used to be, so it's Brookdale, and down to the highway, and through the Osborne-Bennett district. It's very delightful. Used to be. With this proposed center, that would be eliminated. I would like to see some other small businesses that would have a positive influence on the bucolic nature of Tiverton and our environment. Additionally, you can't cross a crosswalk. I live near Robert Gray, turning left onto Main Road from Robert Gray Avenue or from Bellevue Avenue is an impossibility. Sometimes you wait for 5 minutes. Most recently, well, in a crosswalk at Robert Gray, I was almost hit by an automobile. They speed by that crosswalk. This is going to happen at the crosswalk by Sousa and Main Road and Schooner Drive. 2 years ago, other cars had stopped. I was 3/4 of the way through across the crossway. One car decided, a driver, that, oh, this lady doesn't matter. We're going to go around.
This driver almost hit me. Other car drivers were so alarmed, they tooted their horn. This driver didn't care and sped across and continued to drive. This is going to happen. This also happened to me about 2 weeks ago when I was in the crosswalk. People speed through the crosswalk, and that's a commercial area. The bank is there, the post office, Humphreys is there, as well as some residents. I am grateful not to have been hit by either car. I've used this for decades, this crosswalk, and most drivers ignore the laws, including the speed limit. Finally, I enjoy observing the sunsets and the night skies. The light pollution, the air pollution, the auditory pollution will distort and destroy this joy to me and fellow residents. The stars, the moon, the sunsets will not be as clearly visible as they are now due to the light pollution and the air pollution. Please do not permit Colbia to go through with their plan, as it would affect the way of life of all of us who treasure Tiverton. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are 19 people that are still waiting to speak, and we're only going to 10 o'clock, so I don't want to cut anybody off, but we've heard quite a bit about the traffic problems, the light pollution. I just want to make sure everybody's heard, and I want to repeat that if you want to send an email or a letter to the board in lieu of testifying, we'd welcome that, and I promise you we're all going to read it. We've read everything that has been submitted, and I must admit it's getting a little repetitious. So, the email address, again, is buildingclerk@tiverton.ri.gov, and just put seasons in the memo line. Okay, Gary Lieb.
L-E-I-B, like myself. Here I live officially, legal. I'm so sorry to tell the truth, thank you. I'll skip some of the things I was going to say, you've heard them before.
Appreciate it.
And try to do it all in 2 minutes. First of all, to address one of the points made by the applicant, that, it's a business zone. Oh, this one. Thank you. I need new glasses. The applicant said that this is a business zone, so this should, in essence, be permitted. But let me clarify that I've worked for 30 years as a town planner with zoning boards and planning boards. And when we did the zoning ordinances, these kind of megaplexes of 3 combined uses were not considered. And I don't think the zoning board had in mind that this kind of use would be permitted in a business zone such as this. The second point is I've also lived across from a gas station for 30 years. And besides the traffic accidents that I mentioned before to the board, other things that happened was at night the gasoline would be delivered. And the gasoline was delivered when the truck driver found it convenient to do that because of other circumstances. It was usually 2 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock at night. And as was politically explained, and I can bear witness, the lid would fall down with clunk, clunk, clunk noises, waking everybody up in the neighborhood. Worse than that, that gas station had a leak in its tank. And we've heard testimony that there would be double-hulled gasoline tanks installed there to prevent that. But I can also say to you one other thing to consider is the risk of an earthquake. And from the studies I've read, Rhode Island is on a fault, a major fault. Unlike California, where they have frequent earthquakes, we may have one every 200, 100 years. When it comes, it'll be a major one. And when it comes, the 2 hulls of gasoline tanks will not suffice. There'll be an oil spill, and that will flow downstream to all the other homes that are in the neighborhood and in the villages. Those are serious impacts. So, simply said, to summarize, you have 3 proposed uses here that will have a horrible impact on the neighborhood and be incompatible with the neighborhood. And I offer that as my expert testimony as a former town planner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness is Paul Amaral.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening and testifying tonight. I'm going to be brief. I don't think I can add much to what's been said already. But I do live at the Villages in Mount Hope Bay. I was one of the signatories on the petition. I've lived in Tiverton my entire life. Just in round numbers, let's just say it's over 65 years. I access Schooner Drive on a daily basis, which I have to cross Sousa Road, and I cross Main Road frequently to Sousa Road. I use Sousa Road frequently. Many right and left turns out of Schooner Drive. I do sympathize with the folks that reside across the street from the gas station, that abut the gas station, because of all they've testified to, and I do empathize with them. And as some people have said, this isn't NIMBY. Well, obviously I do live near the site, but I'll be perfectly honest with you. If I resided anywhere in the town, I would be against this proposal, because it just does not fit the character of the town, generally speaking. Just a little history. With the onset of urban flight in the 1950s, following World War II, suburban communities like Tiverton began to emerge as city dwellers began to seek a more picturesque, tranquil setting, providing more living space and lower levels of noise and air pollution. This season's project is an existential threat to all of these more positive qualities of life. In keeping with the concept of urban flight, these suburban towns were referred to as bedroom communities, such as Somerset, Swansea, Westport, Portsmouth, Little Compton, and Tiverton. We seem to have lost this idea of Tiverton being a bedroom community. This project, in conjunction with other projects in the area of this intersection, will result in significant urbanization of this section of town, abutting and within sight lines of a historic district and a heavily residential area. Once this project and surrounding housing projects are built out, Tiverton's rural small-town roads clearly are not designed to accommodate the level of traffic these projects will generate. As we know, I'm not a traffic expert, but just common sense. It's not going to be compatible. And we're going to have bumper-to-bumper gridlock traffic every day going to Tom's Market. So, in my attempt to try to be brief, I will urge the committee to please do your best to consider all factors, and please think of the folks and empathize with the folks that are going to have to deal with this every day from now on, unless they decide that they're going to sell their homes, and they shouldn't have to do that. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Patty Sousa Cooper. I'm actually Patricia Sousa Cooper officially.
Souza Cooper, S-O-U-S-A, it's a hyphen, C-O-O-P-E-R. So help me God. I will be extremely brief because everyone has pretty much covered a lot of the things. The traffic, obviously. I moved out here 11 years ago from Aquinic Island. I moved from Middletown because of the rapid commercialization of the island that was starting to happen. I did not want to live like that, so I moved my child and myself out here, and it's been lovely. Obviously, the traffic, the commute has gotten worse over the last 11 years. I do want to thank Louise Durfee for so noting that the people that live in North Tiverton are from Tiverton, and we deserve to have the same respect. I promise you I pay the same taxes. And I don't want to have a lot of commercialization happening in North Tiverton. And this is like it's like the pinnacle of commercialization. This is not what we need in Tiverton at all. We do need something. It's not about, we all know that something needs to come here. We've been trying for years. Something needs to come. We've got to have something come in to bring some tax revenue, bring people to our town so that they can come and spend their money and visit the other already established businesses. But this Seasons in this strategically located lot, the on and off from 24, it's going to be a hop on, hop off. It's not going to help us. It's not going to, people aren't going to come here and come to Seasons. They don't, when you pick a place to go visit for the day, you don't look for, I don't go visit somewhere because there's a Seasons convenience store gas station. That's not where I choose to go. None of us do. No one's gonna stay here. It's actually gonna make our businesses are probably going to suffer because people will hop on and hop off. They'll just get their stuff quickly, get out of here. There won't be, I wonder, in speaking to the criteria, is that going to have a negative effect on the welfare of the community as a whole? Because nobody's going to stay here. They're going to come on, they're going to come off, and obviously the traffic's going to be affected, and clearly the people that live directly in that vicinity are going to be negatively impacted on so many levels. So I just, I don't know, I mean, there's a Seasons 3 minutes away. You put it in the Google Maps and it's a 3-minute drive from that location to the Seasons in Fall River. It's not gonna benefit anybody. And you know, as I so eloquently stated, all the different types of businesses that we could put there would be more beneficial, more in keeping with the character of Tiverton. Even a sports supply store would be better. It would complement Longplex, something. Even my youngest was saying something like the Gilbert Stewart Museum in South County that kind of highlights that, you know, it's the Gilbert Stewart Museum, but we could do, you know, Tiverton's history, something that would bring people to Tiverton, and then they would stay, and they would come and enjoy Tiverton for what it is, for all its natural beauty, for all the businesses that are already here. We have, it's a beautiful community. A Seasons is not gonna complement us in any way, and from not as well versed on all the comprehensive plan and the criteria as the previous speakers, but clearly it doesn't fit. It's not hitting any of those marks that would make it a business appropriate for Tiverton. So, please, let's be like Providence.
Thank you. Thank you. Amy King?
She left.
Okay. Carol Herman?
I do. Good evening. Thank you for your attention and for your patience. Like many other speakers, I have removed from my remarks those that have already been made. I want to start with my concerns about Main Road right in front of this corner lot, and the problems that this project will create there. So Main Road, of course, is only one lane in each direction there. The shoulders are very narrow in that particular location. There's a sharp curve in the road, and this lot is at the bottom of a hill. It doesn't look anything like the other locations of Seasons that I was familiar with. So I did a little research, and I Googled Seasons corner market locations. And boy, I got so many results, because I think they got more than 100 of these in the Northeast, that I simply chose the ones closest that people might be familiar with to give you an idea of the roads that Seasons projects like the one they have proposed, the roads they're typically located on. And what I have found is that the roads are typically 2 travel lanes plus additional turning lanes, and they're in commercial districts abutting other large commercial properties. Fall River, we're familiar with, 2 travel lanes plus additional turning lanes, and of course it's a large commercial areas all around. Middletown, we're familiar with, 2 travel lanes, additional turning lanes, lots of commercial properties. Bristol, same thing, commercial properties. East Greenwich, wait, back up. East Greenwich actually has 3 travel lanes in each direction plus additional turning lanes. Large commercial properties. Another location in East Greenwich, 2 travel lanes with additional turning lanes. Large commercial properties in the neighborhood. North Kingstown, 2 are we back? 2 travel lanes in each direction, additional turning lane, huge commercial property next to the Seasons. Johnston, we don't want to be like Johnston. Here's the Seasons, 2 to 3 travel lanes, additional turning lanes, commercial properties. It goes on. Situate. Now, Situate's a little different. There's 2 travel lanes in each direction, but there are no turning lanes. But consider this. Back up, please. The road is perfectly flat. The road is perfectly straight, so you can see like almost a mile ahead. And the Seasons is not at a 4-way intersection. And yet, it is surrounded by large commercial properties, even in Situate. Smithfield is also similar to Situate in that 2 travel lanes, but no additional turning lanes. Again, note, flat road, straight line of sight, and not at a 4-way intersection, but yet again, near other large commercial properties. Swansea, Mass, I think we've all been there, so we'll skip ahead. Warwick, there are, I think at least 4 Seasons in Warwick. Warwick is kind of Seasons on steroids. They're all on 2, 3 travel lane roads in huge commercial districts. We know what Warwick's like. We're not Warwick. We don't want to be like Warwick. Another Post Road, Warwick. Elmwood Avenue, Warwick. Then we get to Tiverton. It looks a little different. We have 1 travel lane in each direction, no turning lanes, and commercial properties, I don't see any. I see a lot of residential properties. Actually, that little blue sign on Main Road, just north of it, about a half mile or so, is the first commercial property in the neighborhood. It's an antique store. How appropriate for a residential neighborhood that includes an historic district to have a commercial business that's an antique store. This is a drone view. I think this gives you a better idea of the surrounding homes. You see the Winters homes. You see the two homes that are directly across Main Road. Driveways are going to be looking at the Seasons. And the final image here I included because you see quite well how much Main Road curves sharply to the left. And so if you are in your car at Schooner, as everybody described, you have almost no sight line when you're trying to get out and make your left-hand turn. This slideshow is Exhibit 12. It is part of the record. In terms of traffic, otherwise, I'd just like to remind you, Mr. Meth said that there would be 377 trips in and out of this site during morning peak hour. 377. Season says, well, you know, don't worry about it because most of those cars are on the road anyway, they're driving by. It's not the cars driving by that worry me. It's the cars slowing down to turn in or coming to a complete stop to turn in. Because even just slowing down to 10 miles an hour backs up traffic on Main Road. People honk at me when I slow down to turn into my driveway because they're used to driving 40 miles an hour there. It's even worse if the car has to make a left-hand turn into this site because the car has to come to a complete stop, and in about 15 seconds, there will be 10 or more cars waiting behind the car trying to turn left. So any use like a Seasons with gas and convenience store and drive-up window that creates a lot of in and out traffic creates the traffic issues.
Ms. Herman, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is already in the record, and there are a lot of people here that are still waiting to speak.
Okay.
So
I'm
if
happy.
you could not be repetitive of points that were made during the hearing or what other people have said would be really appreciated.
Yes, I'm also happy to wait to the end or come back another night if that's more convenient for people. Public safety. Another concern I have is about the ability of public safety vehicles, in particular ambulances, to get through that section of Main Road with traffic congestion created by this project. And so I have some new data to present to you. I submitted a public records request to our town clerk for information on the number of ambulance runs just to Brookdale Manor for the period from January 2023 through the end of September 2024. Because most, if not all of these ambulances will be coming from the North Tiverton Fire Station and down past the Sousa Main Road intersection. What I learned from the data is that it's not uncommon to have 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 ambulance runs to Brookdale on the same day. The monthly average was more than 21 runs, with a highest monthly total of 38 runs for that period. But you need to keep in mind that these numbers do not include all the other ambulance runs down Main Road from the North Tiverton Fire Station to locations other than Brookdale. And why does this matter? It's because Main Road is at its narrowest just north of this 4-way intersection. And so the shoulder there, I measured it just north of the intersection, is less than 3 feet. It's about 2.5 feet wide. Now, cars are going to try to pull over on both sides, and even if they eventually pull over, the ambulance is going to have trouble getting through. It's going to have to slow down. That delays emergency medical services getting to our residents. That is not It doesn't improve public safety or public welfare. Dangers to pedestrians. I don't think anybody has spoken about the location of the crosswalk suggested or planned by Seasons. The applicant hasn't shown that that is a safe location for a crosswalk. Mr. Meth, the traffic expert, said that this location would endanger pedestrians. And think about it. You've got the cars from Schooner trying to turn left. They're looking for a gap. As soon as they see a gap, they've got to pull out. You have pedestrians looking for the same gap, and they're going to jump into the road to take advantage of the same gap. It's not going to be pretty if they hit each other. And pedestrians, by the way, will have to come to this project from the west side of Main Road, because if you look at that image, there is no sidewalk on the east side of Main Road. People who walk up and down Main Road walk on the west side where there is a sidewalk. Compatibility with neighboring uses. They're residential. Mr. Toback described the 8-bay gas station as being a light industrial use. The Main Road commercial corridor starts north of here. It starts very slowly and very gently. And by that I mean they're very low impact uses, like the antique store, like Stanley's Upholstery, and they close at 4 or 5 or 6 p.m. There are other uses, as people have spoken to, that would be compatible with a residential neighborhood. They would not generate constant in and out traffic and create the danger that that traffic does. And those uses could be housed in a building that would blend in with the neighboring homes rather than being housed in a garish, plastic, cookie-cutter look of a Seasons. Nuisance, criterion 4. During morning and afternoon rush hours and on Saturdays, we have traffic on Main Road. People have spoken to that. But in the evening, our neighborhood is very quiet. By 9 p.m., if you stand on that corner, there are no commercial lights visible. There are very few lights at all, and very little traffic. So summertime, my home's located 300 feet from this corner. In the summertime, I sleep with all my bedroom windows open. I live in a home built in 1902. I have no central air. I don't even have air conditioner window units. I have ceiling fans. I've got lots of windows and cross breezes. What do I hear? I hear the sound of crickets. And occasionally, I'll hear a quiet whoosh of a single car going by. If this gets built, I'm going to hear those nighttime gas deliveries. I'm going to hear the trucks that pull in to fill up with their radios blaring, as Mr. Alzabak described, and quite possibly dumpsters being emptied. Mr. Della Carpini, the owner of the Seasons Enterprises, testified to the Warwick Zoning Board that they have no control over when their dumpsters are emptied, and so that could happen any time of day or night. I moved from Providence to Tiverton 33 years ago because I was drawn by the small town, rural character, and I wanted to get away from big, noisy commercial complexes that look the same wherever they're built. If this gets approved, I'll be moving back to Providence in terms of my quality of life. Please, please use your common sense. Think about the changes to the neighborhood and refuse to grant these special use permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Rosa?
Yes, well, first of all, again, I'd like to thank all of you for just the endless hours and stuff, and it's a thankless job, and your eyes aren't closed yet, so thank you, really.
But night is falling.
And I'm gonna be very brief, but I also want to thank Preserve Tiverton for, you know, helping not to put a square peg in a round hole. I mean, this seems so obvious, and after hearing the testimony tonight, that basically, you know, the special use permit protects us against, well, it's commercial property, but obviously if you need a special use permit, then there's other issues that doesn't really cover. So I just want to emphasize a couple of things that were brought out that were, you know, important. Again, I'm a resident of the villages. You know, we're older people. You know, we're not all great drivers. If you have this monstrosity with all of these lights and traffic's pulling in and out and stuff, it is a real danger to us. In addition to that horrible curve on the left hand, you know, on the left of Schooner Drive. The other thing too is, once you make this decision, and the other thing, I think Ms. Durfee referred to a couple of things that was really very relevant. Number one, looking down the road 5, 10 years, you've got that big development that's coming in of affordable housing. You know, you've got the train station, so more people will probably be moving to Tiverton, and the traffic's going to get a lot worse along that road. It's hazardous enough as it is, with the affordable housing going in behind it. You know, it could be a hangout for kids or people, you know, we're old people, we're at the other end of the spectrum as far as our driving abilities, but you're also going to have younger drivers that just get their license and are moving in and out through there. And again, by approving this, you're creating, you know, you're taking a dangerous situation and making it even more dangerous. The other thing that you're doing is, if you do approve it, now you've set a precedent. And like, again, Ms. Durfee referred to, is what's going to happen at the other end of the town, or even in other towns where I don't know of too many seasons. Again, our last speaker pointed out different areas, but I think generally they don't build in towns like ours. You know, this might be a little bit of an experiment, but they're endangering our quality of life, and I wouldn't want them to see them endanger other qualities of life. So you really have an opportunity to take a stand here. And, you know, in deference to the latest Bob Dylan movie, you know, one of my favorite quotes is, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind is blowing. But I think in this case, you know, you don't have to be an engineer to realize, and it was what, you know, brought out very well by Mr. Reed, that really after listening to this testimony, I really hope none of you really feel that this is going to be a good thing for Tiverton. And once it's built, there's no going back. So I urge you, you know, for all of our safety and well-being, and, you know, not to vote for this. I think it's going to be a total disaster. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Kim? Anna?
I want to thank the board for all the work that you've done on this. It's a real service. I've been a village resident since 2007, and there's one, I eliminated 2/3 of what I was going to say because it's been
I appreciate it, really.
said a lot. One of the things that I'm concerned about is coming up Schooner Drive at night, and now you have the real bright lights, which is probably akin to lights coming straight at you at full brightness, okay? So this to me would be, you know, something, if you have somebody coming toward you, they'll dim their lights. Well, Seasons isn't going to dim the lights, and they will be right in your face. So I'm concerned that that is going to make people coming up Schooner into this intersection, they'll be somewhat blinded, and that will make it even less safe. So that's something that I haven't heard mentioned, but I'd like to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And your brevity is much appreciated. Tom Peterson.
I do. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So, given the time, I will keep my comments to just one point that I'd like to make, because many people have made other excellent points on safety, environment, etc. But one of the criteria is that this gas station needs to be compatible with existing neighborhood uses. I live just south of this intersection. I can see this intersection from my front yard and from the second floor of my house. So I am a neighbor, and I'd like to tell you how I use my property and why it's not compatible with it. I bought this property 3 years ago. I moved from Providence, like many people here, because I was looking for a quieter lifestyle. I think the North Tiverton gets a bad rap. This section of Main Road, most of the houses are older. My house is built in 1915. They're on larger lots. My lot is almost 2 acres. I have a view of the water. That's why I picked this house. It's historic. I have a large lot. I have a view. I spent a lot of time over the last 3 years investing in this property, fixing up the house, putting in landscaping, hardscaping, and one of the things that I like to do is entertain in my backyard. I think somebody was talking about how they can smell the neighbor's barbecue. I think that might be me. Putting a gas station affects the light pollution, the noise pollution, the smell. That's affecting my use of my property. That's affecting my neighbor's use of their property. This gas station does not belong in our neighborhood. This is a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. David Warmanek. And I want to mention that you will be concluding page 1 of the list. So, half a page is going to have to do this in 30 minutes.
Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Board, I wish to speak briefly to priceless intangibles, the essential character of our community. My wife and I moved here in 2007 after living in a number of celebrated cities to this, our unique and picturesque town. I lead tours in a small city in the southern end of this county where I proudly point out to tourists Tiverton's role in achieving American independence. But the malicious demolition of the Lafayette House has relegated Tiverton to a minor national disgrace. This plan to plop a noisy, garish visual affront next to a sensitive historic area will make Tiverton a very ordinary place like any other. Remember that old movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where charming, hospitable Bedford Falls becomes the miserable, venal repository of inconsiderate greed named Pottersville. Please halt this heartless commercial assault that will devalue our town's virtues. Thank you very much. That is.
Thank you very much. Gail Lawrence.
Good evening. Is that the right level?
Perfect.
I would just like to echo almost every single comment I've heard tonight, and sort of jump to the next thing on my page. I am concerned about the danger of intersections generally,
And so I actually went to the Rhode Island DOT's website to learn more about our statewide trends at intersections. And it turns out that 1 in 5 serious injury experience or incidents or fatalities is attributed to an intersection. 20% of the accidents happen at intersections. And furthermore, another 20% of these same level serious injury fatalities happen on local streets. So I invite you to consider the impact of something like Seasons being located on 0 Sousa Road. Just for a moment, think about those statistics. 1 in 5 is one too many. So that was very distressing to me. And then I read a little more. 75 to 80% of the vehicles on our highways today are classified as light-duty trucks, minivans, SUVs, and light trucks. And as we all know, they are being built bigger and better. Unfortunately, those vehicles are not able to see the pedestrian or the cyclist as well as we would like them to. And there are more and more incidents of people being killed, not intentionally, but accidentally. Those statistics are very alarming to me. I think the Sousa Road intersection, from everything I've heard everyone say this evening, is already problematic. I live in the southern part of Tiverton. I don't have to trade with the markets and so on in the North Park, but I do, because I'm a loyal Tivertonian. However, I want to relate one thing that happened to me that Ms. Herman's comments made me think of. I was coming home one day from the north part of town, and I heard the siren. In my rearview mirror, I could see the fire engine was coming at a good speed. So I carefully pulled over to the shallow shoulder and stopped, as did the other travelers in the southbound lane. Likewise, the travelers in the northbound lane heeded the siren. So it looked like everything was perfect, right? The fire engine took the entire middle of the road. We were all pulled over as far as we could go. From my vantage point, I could see a large trailer with a huge boat and a big truck coming in my direction. And as I sat there, I thought, this is not going to be good. As it turned out, that driver was alert, and he was paying enough attention so he too could get off the road. When I got all done with everyone stopped on the shallow side of the road, guess where I was located on Main Road? My car was directly opposite the vacant lot where Seasons proposes to exist. If Seasons had been operational, how might that scenario unfolded? Every single driver did exactly the right thing. They did pull over, even though they didn't have a lot of room, and they heeded the siren. Now, another aspect of what the DOT discovered is that there has been a steady increase in risk-taking behaviors on the part of motorists on our highways. That's because they're driving when they're distracted, or they're slightly impaired by a medication, or by an illegal drug, or they're speeding, as Mr. Azevek has told us. So I ask you, you overlay a Seasons gas station on my scenario, and I don't think you need much more evidence to determine that this would be detrimental to our community. In fact, I think it would put many people's lives in jeopardy. And I would not want to make a decision that would allow that to happen. So I urge you to deny these permits. I don't think Corbea has met our standards that we've established to protect our community and to take care of the public health well, you know, and safety, I don't think they have met the standard. The burden would be on us. We'd have more risk, we'd be endangered, and I don't want to be, Tiverton has a 1 in 5 chance, right? I don't want that to be the statistic ascribed to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence.
I have the petitions that I'm supposed to give you. There are petitions that were signed by people throughout the town. There are 14 pages of them, almost 200 signatures.
Thank you. Those will be marked as an exhibit. P, what number are we up to?
P6.
Jim Raycroft? Have you left? Yay. Jason Osborne.
I do. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I think a lot of people spoke very well on the case here. And so I just wanted to add a few things briefly to that. My family has had a home, has a home, and been a taxpayer of Tiverton for roughly about, since the mid-1700s, or about 260 years. My brother and I worked with the State Historic and Preservation Office in Providence and the National Park Service to establish the Osborne-Bennett Historic District. The objective there was to preserve family history, preserve town history, and to really provide a speed bump for one-star development or maybe some challenges from the boards. I hold engineering degrees from University of Rhode Island, go Rhody, and MIT. I've practiced engineering for over 40 years. In the 80s, I served both on the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Board in a small New Hampshire town during a period of rapid growth. So I spent several days out of the month working on these boards, often to midnight or later to handle the load. So I'm completely empathetic with your time that you donate for this cause. I totally get it. We burned out a lot of residents in there. They just couldn't handle it. It was too much of their time, so I get it. So I saw a lot of cases. I can't say I saw exactly this case, but I think this is pretty easy. So on the zoning board, I was also chairman of both the zoning board and planning board at different times. So I'm well aware of what the criteria is, particularly the special use permits and the exceptions that need to be granted. I think this is a pretty easy case. It's probably not the most easiest case that I heard, but this is very easy. I mean, the issue here is safety. It's been emphasized many times. And I think when the board examines these, you need to look at what that special criteria is. And I think each of you, whether you approve it or disapprove it, need to state clearly why you approve or disapprove. Otherwise, you expose yourself and the town for litigation. And that will cost all of us. We're all paying for that. So in reviewing, I didn't make every meeting here. I did look over the site plan. I will say this, is that if I was Seasons, I don't know why they didn't take advantage of spreading out the use on that lot.
I would have also recommended that they heeded the call from the locals here. I mean, this is overwhelming. There's a safety issue there. It should have turning lanes on both Sousa Road and on Main Road. That would mitigate a lot of the challenges. The lighting issue and the traffic issues, these have been mitigated in other states, particularly in California, where they have very tight restrictions. It's like they could have made this a much better application, a much more palatable application. I don't think it would have met the criteria, but they could at least alleviated a lot of concerns. But unfortunately, in my opinion, they chose not to. So, you know, it's an accident-rich environment. It's only going to get worse, and you know, it's unfortunate that they didn't step up and make a more palatable plan. But you know, there's other issues, as many have said. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and go Tiverton.
Thank you. Dr. Robert Bishop.
Good evening. I'm also... I do. I'm also a resident of the Villages, and I support everything that's been said. I am going to provide a written document that will summarize things so I can get out of here quickly. But there are some pictures of season stations at night on a dark street, which I have a copy of here. I don't know if you want to see that, or just we'll submit it all.
With your,
And to support what's going to happen at night, we've all woken up, gone into a bright light. Oh, I can't see for a minute, right? Till your eyes adjust. This is what happens, right? So you're coming up a dark street. This is very well lit. Your eyes are trying to adjust. You're not going to see a light from the side. And I'll have pictures and to document that when I submit it before the end of the week. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Nancy Driggs. She's gone? Hallelujah. John Perkins. He left. Deborah Gee.
I live on Evans Avenue in Tiverton. I moved here from many other places. I've been a teacher, or was a teacher, for 42 years. My reason for speaking about Evans Avenue this evening is that we were a highway that connected the old bridge, which created us. We have a wider road than most. We had exits and entrances from the bridge down at the bottom. We had a fishing company. We had places people would put their boats in, and we still have a place for people to put their boats in. When I moved in, my property is not huge, but it's big, and it's well landscaped, and it's got it's an almost 100 years old house, and I worked very hard to maintain its dignity and my dignity as a person in a community where a lot of people that spoke today are very close to the problem I'm just down the street a bit. And down the street a bit, we've been having issues since I moved in. Getting off of Evans Avenue, because we have another street across, and we have Main Road, and it's not very wide. It got a little bit wider when they decided to work on the new 24 and enlarge that area. But again, we lost the on and off that was down at the bottom of the hill. That created the on and off on Main Road, which, if this goes through, is going to have a lot more people, if what they hope happens, drop in to get gas, or drop by with their boat hooked up to the back of there. And I looked very closely. I'm an artist, I'm an art teacher. I looked very closely at two things. One of them is I looked at the design of it, and I see a lot of trouble with a lot of cars getting in each other's way. And then we have two roads that connect to that, Sousa and Main Road, which everybody's talked about how narrow they can't be changed. Nothing's going to change that for us. If this goes through, people haven't been talking about the construction part of that. I lived on Evans Avenue. At the top of the street, at one point in time, a big truck delivering to the bottom made the corner, had to make a wide turn, and was coming in from the left hand, so making a left-hand turn, got caught across Main Road, blocking both our road and Main Road for over a day before it finally got moved. They had to go and put tires down. They had all the big stuff further down at the bridge. I don't see where construction can go on for whatever period of time it is in an area that has no place for anyone else to be. I want to participate in my community. I moved here to be in a community. I came from a town in Vermont. I loved the community. So I want to live in a community. And I can't get to the things in the community that I do like to do often. Everything is on the other side of this area for me. Can I get on 24 and go someplace else? Of course I can. But I'm also getting older. I also have had eye surgery. I have issues that make it easier for me and good friends to even pick me up on the other side, come back, get me, and take me back to the post office, my church, all the other things that everybody else has mentioned. So the construction part of that, with no improvements on the two roads, and definitely you don't need another light, because the light can't connect all those different ways and make it possible. Again, coming out of Evans, there's a light there on near 24, but it's not helping us on the other side because there's too much traffic that's coming off coming from Newport and flowing right in, so it's a very busy road. The other part that has been briefly mentioned later on that I want to, as a person who values children, you have a development that's coming in at the top of that hill. And I know children. I worked in a middle school area. And if you have food, you will have children. And in areas like that, right now being the kind of area it is, it's limited to homes and limited to the amount of people. But you bring 300 whatever units that are up there with at least one child in each that are going to, sometime they're going to be teenagers, middle school teenagers, and so on. No road for them, no sidewalk for them to come down. They'll make their way down, and they'll make it as long as it is open. So if it's open until midnight, you will find children there, because a lot of parents are working odd hours now, and they count on their children behaving themselves. How do I know that? Our pandemic had children sitting on the stone wall to the cemetery when they should have been inside on Zoom doing their lessons. They were out in the road at times. They were up and down the streets all over there. And because that's closer to the post office and those kinds of things, it gave them a little bit, it was more of a chat area, but try skateboards and an area for crossing a road that I would think that the least you should have there in a crosswalk is a sign that says you need to stop for people in a crosswalk. You don't have room for that. So you are endangering anyone in the areas that would want to walk around that live there now. And I travel, not as much in the dark as I used to, but I have been down on Schooner, and I agree with everyone else. You cannot see, and everybody's coming fast, and I happen to be one of a few that stay within the posted speed. And I still find it, by the time you keep looking back and forth, your head is just, it even tells you incorrect things. I've also been a passenger in a car. Try being a passenger in a car watching somebody try to get out. There's a number of times I've been screaming, car, car, because that person has looked this way, thinks finally I can go, and we've had some clear near misses. I've also been in that stretch of area on Main Road where people like to be nice in Tiverton. So somebody stopped to let a side street person out of a side street. I stopped, the person behind me didn't stop, and rear-ended me. So there's so much you have to consider here. And I think most of it should be you wanting to know every person who wants to say something to you. Okay? I understand how long this goes. And I understand some of us have problems of our own that make things more difficult. But I lost somebody today, and I was at a funeral today, but I made it. And I want you to know that, please, take into consideration every person that signed a form, every person who has tried to find out about meetings. I even went on our site, which I do for almost everybody in my neighborhood who doesn't like to do computers. And I couldn't find, other than a little blimp on this calendar, this was an important meeting. There should have been something a little bit bigger, like right on the site. So the minute you open it up, you can see it. Thank you for listening. I appreciate the time and effort you to put in your day. Please be safe and healthy.
Thank you. Andrew Diaz? Gone. Philip Carney? Gone. And Mike Burke?
Thank you for your late nights, not just this one. I appreciate the time. Just for identification, I'm Mike Burke. I just finished 4 years as the Vice President of the Town Council, and I'm also the Chair of the North Tiverton Revitalization Committee that Ms. Jones spoke about earlier. And the reason I raise that is because a lot of the ideas that some of the folks have raised here about what they don't want and what they do want is the reason that that committee was started. In terms of North Tiverton. So we do have a public outreach session tomorrow night at Picasset, starting at 5:30, so please join us if you want to give ideas. But not to reiterate some things, but I just want to point out some observations. So professionally, I'm a social worker. and we have a concept called goodness of fit. And basically, goodness of fit means that somebody has a temperament that fits into a certain environment, and it's a good environment for them. It's a natural fit together with them or with another person. I think just on face value, let alone all the good testimony that you've heard tonight in the past from folks who have serious concerns about this, this project is not a goodness of fit for this area or for Tiverton. And I would say Mr. Reed, who I love, I would not put it further up on Main Road either. So this is one of our gateways. As you're coming off the highway going north, this is one of our gateways. That's not what you want to see in a gateway to Tiverton. Sure, I'm sorry. That's not what you want to see in a gateway to Tiverton. I've lived here a little over 20 years, and I live up on Durfee near Tom's. And most days, especially on a Saturday or a busy morning, I can't take a left. I go right, and then go to my step-by-step, get my lottery tickets, and then make my way down, because I can't take a left on Main Road without sitting there for a while. This is going to increase that traffic. Thank you. I'm used to talking in legislative meetings, and I have to talk quickly. The other thing, there was a mention of the abutters in terms of the truck traffic and deliveries and the like. So I'll be up in a few hours at 4:15 to go to Planet Fitness in Fall River. Almost every morning, there's a delivery truck at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning there. And it's not just gas, it's all the other amenities that they provide. And I'm sure that would be a bit of a hassle for the neighbors. And then if you've been to the north end of town where the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through is, at one of their busiest times, you will see how it backs up on Main Road. And again, people have spoken about that, but that's an example of how that is an issue. So I really do think you have enough evidence with the points that Colbia has to give you sufficient evidence to approve them. I think you have enough evidence not to approve them, and I appreciate your time, and I thank you.
Thank you. Well, now 9:58, and we will conclude this. There's one matter we wanted to discuss was the briefing schedules. Oh. Okay. We're going to close this hearing now, but I just wanted to repeat that everyone can send emails up to Friday or letters to the town building office until 1:30 on this Friday. And after that, public input will be terminated. Okay? Everybody got that? I'm not speaking English anymore. At the town hall, in the building and zoning office. Okay, thanks. I wanted to talk about the briefing schedules that, why? I don't think so. Do you have the dates? There have been two opposite, as one would expect, proposals. One for simultaneous filings with the opportunity to file a rebuttal brief, and one suggesting that the applicant submit a brief and then the objectors submit a brief with a rebuttal by the applicant. I think it makes sense to do simultaneous filings, and we have some proposed dates. The briefs will be due on March 7th. And if there are rebuttals or reply briefs that want to be filed, May 1st? March 21st. And are we going to have any oral argument? Or I think there should be an opportunity for members of the board to ask questions of the attorneys before we close the hearing.
The hearing's closed.
No, you know what I mean, before we deliberate.
Sure, the public part is
Before we
closed.
deliberate. What is the date that we proposed for that? April 15th? 16th? I think it was April 16th. We need to confirm that
We'll
date
have to confirm that date.
of April 16th because we want to make sure that we have the space to, we can get the town hall or here if that's necessary, but I think it'd be more likely at the town hall. And then I guess after that is concluded, we will begin our deliberations.
Thank you.
Are those dates convenient for everyone on the board?
Okay, so can I ask about the status of the record? So did all parties agree that the record is now complete as far as, obviously tonight's transcript is not there, but as far as the records that were submitted, did everyone have an opportunity to go through those, and does anything need to be added to that?
We think we're in agreement in terms of what's being included. Well, of course, today's notice, today's agenda, today's minutes, today's transcripts, today's exhibits will all be added. The letters that are sent by Friday will add. Then we'll confer again, make sure everybody's comfortable. Once everybody's comfortable that we've included everything, including you as the solicitor, we will then bait stamp, which means number the pages digitally from 1 to 8,722,062.
That's fine. Okay. I'll second it. All those in favor? Are you voting, Jim?
He made the motion.
I think it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for coming.